What's up, Buffalo? What's up, Matt? Just waiting to get some numbers up so we can get a guest in here. Yep. Sure to tap the screen. Let's see here. I got to send an invite. I want to invite definition, not on live. Here we go. What's up, Fred? What's up, James? Said hi to James. Let's see here. Nehemiah, peace. What's up, Bedizzle? Jip, big Jip. Let's see here. Waiting on a guest. Waiting on a good old friend. He should be checking in here soon. Hold on. Not saying that name. Okay, hold on. I let him know. Here we go. All right. All right, I think we got it now here. Thanks, April, Rex, Patrick. Tap screen if you can. Get the algorithm up. Get some more people in here. Already up to 9. Share that energy. You found this live for a reason. Definition.
Hey,
There he is.
Grand Rising.
Yeah, it is. What's up, Mishi, Veronica? We'll get some numbers in here. It always lies to you. It tells you there's 8, but there's hundreds of people out here searching.
Right?
Yeah.
Truth seekers.
Yeah, something's in the water.
Yeah, it's definitely afoot. The Schumann resonance has been off the charts. Also, those solar flares have been going like crazy too.
Where in your you're over in Michigan, so you're seeing lots of that.
Oh yeah. No, it's I was even talking to a dentist yesterday, and he's like, man, Eric, he's like, I don't know what's going on. He's like, I had to lay down. He says, he said I was just getting hit with. I don't know what it was, and I told him because he's not tuned into everything. And I says, yeah, I had to lay down myself on Monday for about 4 or 5 hours. Says the energy was like super strong. So
like like in a negative way.
Well, it's not a neg. It's just that it's just a very strong energy. So it's not like it's not a negative. I mean, the ion. It's just very overpowering for something it's an empath. that's picking up those electromagnetic pulses of energy. So it's like, so you got to sit down and allow the absorption of that energy to charge up your batteries. It's like on super, super fast charging your batteries. So, but yeah, it's definitely been very empowering the past week.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
That's the paradox, where you got to be able to see the paradox, be able to see both sides of the coin, and not and not let your heart be overcharged, pun intended, and so that way, therefore, you can allow the energy to flow through you and not be trapped in the whole false dichotomy of things, this being evil or that being good, and just accepting things for what they are.
Yeah, I've been. You notice that a lot now, well, especially with the election, the charge polarities, and it also seems to be so much controlled that they counter each other and balance it out. So if one side's too wild, then the other side gets so wild. And
yes, yeah, they're playing off of each other's energy all the while. Keeping the false dichotomy going, and having the people be divided. Unfortunately, that's why the tell is in the spell. That's a very something they have to start to understand and overstand. But the tell is in the spell. That's why when you have a division, you have a divided ions. The ions are being, they're being instead of being magnetically attracted, they're being magnetically opposed. And so but most don't understand that energy, and so that's why they're searching for the truth. They're on a quest. The ions of their minds are on a quest to find the truth of why these things are happening within them in their body, and the invisible things they can't see, but it still has a force of presence within them.
So that's obviously where you get the question.
Yes, the quest ion, because in Latin, ion is onward going. It's always energy is not created nor destroyed. It just transfers realms. And so those ions are always going. And so just like in our mind, where's the end of the thinking mind? Where does the circle start and where does it stop? And so when someone's on a quest in their mind, they know that there's more truth, but they have forgotten it last time they came through, and they're trying to remember what they know is there, but it's been suppressed. Even there in the book of metaphysics, there in Luke 11:52, the light bearer says, woe unto lawyers, for you've taken the key of knowledge and you've hid it, and those desiring to look into that light you've hindered. And so through this medium here, this vehicle that we have, we are able to enlighten each other to come to the knowledge of truth.
Yeah. Well, that's hard to follow up.
Yeah. It's well,
it'd be
it's like
it'd be good if we could get some questions down here. If anybody has some questions, and I mean, this is a crazy time. I might change this background a little bit. I might mess around with that while you're talking, but. What was it? Our first conversation we came up on about why the days begin in seconds, and
yes,
you're talking about the terminology, the etymology behind some of these terms that throw us off.
Yes, that has changed his story, and how the tell is in the spell once again. Where you get midnight, it's midnight. It's a prefix mid, but they didn't finish the rest of the word, and so they have the masses believing that just like the midnight mass. But what is mass short for? See, mass is not even the complete word. When people are ex-mass, mass, you finish the word ACRE. And you have, I believe that's what the rest of the word is, and that's what you're doing with the Christ, the body. You're crucifying it each time you partake in the colostrum of the brain and the spine, and you're having the Xmas, the Christ Mass, or the Mass of Christ, or the Mass Acre of Christ. That's the thing when you get midnight. You get the middle. It's the middle of the night. It's not the beginning of the days. That's why they have us in a daze, D-A-Z-E. They have us in a daze, you see, and that's why the first at 6:01 starts a.m. starts the day. It starts the day, and then there's 4 watches, and that's why you got to look at that book, the old King James, which I believe that Shakespeare, one of his greatest works. But in of that, there's 4 watches. It talks about the 4 watches in the night, and there's 4 watches in the day, and that's where you get 4 times 3 is 12, and you get the 12 hours, or 12 Horus, because the anagram of hours is Horus, and that's what the sun does. Each hour it walks across the sky. You get Luke Skywalker, but you have 4 watches in the night. So 6:01 starts the day, and then you get 9 o'clock, which is the the first watch, and then you get the 12 a.m., or goes 12 p.m., which would be the second watch, and then 3 p.m. would be the third watch, and then go to 5:59 p.m., and that would be the third. That would be the fourth watch of the day, and then it starts over, and then it goes through the 4 watches of the night from 6:01 p.m. and keeps on going, and then that's where you get the middle of the night. It would be the second watch of the night, the fishermen, because everything is based on maritime law, and most people aren't aware of that either. So that's where you get the third watch of the night, which would be the mariners, would be the Phoenicians who created this whole matrix system that we have. And so, and then we could even tie this into why so many people they get confused, especially Christians, because this stuff has been hidden, but yet it's been in plain sight. It says that Christ was crucified on the ninth hour of the day. You know, and he gave up the ghost on the 9th hour. He was crucified on the 12th hour. And here's something. He was crucified at the 6th hour of the day, which would be 12 p.m. And then it says there was darkness. So then this is where you have to use intuition. This says there was darkness on the whole face of the earth, from the 6th hour of the day to the 9th hour. What do you think that darkness was that it was talking about? The intuitive insight of that darkness for 3 hours, from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m.
Well, had to be some kind of reset.
It was a solar eclipse. Yeah. The sun, Horus, son of God. There was a solar eclipse, S-O-U-L, from the 12th hour, from the 12th to 3 p.m., which was the second watch to the third watch. And then he went into the ground. He went into the heart. Anagram of heart is earth. He went into the heart of the earth at the fourth watch, which would be 6 p.m. And this is where the conundrum comes in, and where the investigation comes in, because the religious terminology and the Good Friday, you look at Good Friday, and so if Christ died on the 9th hour of the day, which would be Friday, which they have it Friday, if their math is correct, and you have Christ going in the ground at 6 p.m., which is the start of the next start of the night, you have to have, and then Christ, he would be in the heart of the earth from 6 p.m. on Friday night to 6 p.m. Saturnine night, and then Sunday, the day of the Son of God arose at 6 p.m. or 6 a.m. Sunday morning. Paul on Sunday morning. That's only 36 hours. What do you do? 36 Horuses. What do you do with the other 36 hours? Because it says in the book that as Jonah was in the belly of the whale, 3 days and 3 nights. It's always nights and days, not nights and days. You got to pay attention to details. So must the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So when you start looking at all these times and how they changed the times and they changed the S's, the Z's in words, and they changed them to S's, so you would miss the be able to figure this stuff out. This is where people are completely deceived in a deep deception, because they don't even know that they're not following the lunar calendar anymore. They're following the sun calendar.
Well, that's
and they're not following the first, they're following the second, the seconds.
Oh, okay. There it is. So, yeah, I was just doing some quick math on that, because that would just somewhere get you around that 28-day moon calendar then.
Correct. The 28 moon, and then you would have 13 moons. That's why it's moons. Not, once again, they hid that from us. They took out the O, and so the second O, and so therefore people aren't aware of even those things as well.
Yeah, the month, and then the day starting on Moon Day, which I'm not even sure if it is Moon Day. But
well, it's a 7, and that's why even once again in the book, you get the old the Old Testament there, the Old Covenant, but nevertheless, that's why you have 28. It was always the 1st through 7th day. You didn't have the gods or the planets or whatever they might be. You didn't have Moon Day, Tuesday, Woden's Day, Thor's Day, Freitag Day, Saturn Day, Sunday. You had 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and then it started over. And so, and that's why they follow the lunar calendar. That's why everything is still based on the lunar calendar. They can try to do the solar calendar, but it's still based on the lunar calendar.
Well,
the lunar is the moon.
I came across a video last night of how to follow the correct Gregorian calendar, and they're still lobbying for people who are curious about this. That's the first video that pops up. It's really really horrible information. Same with that sacred secretion tracker. It's the whole calendar has been off the whole time, and I think I've been updating our group chat about this. But if you don't have one of those apps on your phone, or you need to learn how to determine the constellations, you're going to be off. And I don't know how important it is, because the principles you're still benefiting throughout the through the monthly cycle, you're still benefiting health-wise. So, I don't feel like I feel like it's something you're going to figure out on your own the more you practice.
Yes, you'll your intuition will kick in, and your body will start to be in tune, and you'll start to realize that the sacred secretion has been happening a whole lot longer than what most people have realized. When they start to see the pattern recognition ion of the things actually that have always been taking place, but they weren't cognitive of what was actually happening to them, of what true quote unquote salvation is, and the oil rising and the oil of gladness that rises up and through meditation and abstaining. Once again, in 1 Corinthians, in the book of metaphysics, the whole reason why the Bible was written is because it's a glass in the mirror, and so many people have had generational curses, that their hearts have been hardened, so they need a glass, a tablet. But in 1 Corinthians 7, there you see that it speaks indirectly about sacred secretion, that husband and wives, that they refrain from knowing each other or having sacred energy exchange, or also known as sex, for prayer and fasting, so they don't exert their super God conscience energy, and their body can be you can allow the secret ions secretions take place.
Yeah, well, the timing of it being that nobody looks outside anymore. Nobody's looking at the stars or the clocks, and how this information That's what's all in the pyramids, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's the Orion's or Pleiades or Orion's belt aligns with the three pyramids, but they're finding these pyramids all over the place. So who really? That's a whole nother can of worms. Who really knows where's Egypt and where's Michigan, where's Montana? These are all things that people need to question, and they need to allow intuition and source within inside of them to start revealing what the truth is. But it's almost like a reflection of the things on the earth, if this is what this place is. But if you look at the heavens, we'll just take what they've told us these things are. But there's a mirror reflection of the things in the heavens that are on the earth.
Right. Well, and I'm not so convinced that each creation story is not some type of hint or element of it, if you know what I mean. Like if you laid it, remember those old anatomy maps where you would just layer the liver over the spleen over the, it's almost like there is some sort of intuitional truth in all of it.
Oh yeah, it's there, but that's why another proverb that says that the secrets are with the right chest, the righteous, the right chest. But I was just dwelling upon that this morning, contemplating about that I'm more free now and more in tune with source and with God, quote unquote, the further that I've gotten away from buildings and religion, because it's religion that people are relying on someone else to tell them what truth is, and they're never going to find it from relying and looking on the outside when everything that we need is right within our heart drive already, our binary heart drive, which is connected to, quote unquote, the cloud. And it's all semantics, and you find whatever story, whatever frequency that resonates with you. But the only thing really, all Carl Jung, the King James Bible, all these different people, they all speak about the same thing, about looking at the man in the mirror. Michael Jackson, the man in the mirror, doing the personal work, doing the shadow work. And that's where true salvation comes from, when you cease from relying and you get off the milk and you start to really evaluate who you are and what is your purpose here, and you start to love yourself again. Really, it is. It's learning to re-love yourself from once you've forgotten as a child or whatever environment you were in.
So you're telling me that there's a problem with that nowadays?
Yeah. What the?
You mean being told you're going to hell on a weekly basis doesn't start to pile up?
Oh yeah, no, all that. Yeah, well, it's so. Here is the parable. It says and this is the parable, Luke 8:11. The life bearer, Luke reveals it. He says that the seed is the word of God, and you start planting. The seeds are seeds, and you plant those seeds. You're a sinner saved by grace. Every letter has a frequency to it, and you keep on planting those seeds, and that communication. Next thing you know, your heart drive is going to be overcharged, and it's going to be programmed to be to believe in the whole false dichotomy of heaven and hell, when there's no physical place. There can't be. And they make heaven this place that you're going to get to in the future. You're going to get to, when we all get to heaven, what a great it would be. And that's why people don't ever do the personal work, because I'm going to get everything fixed when I get to heaven. I bought fire insurance. 1, 2, 3, pray after me, walk down the aisles. You say a few things, you ask Jesus to come into your heart, and then I'm going to live righteous when I get to heaven. I don't have to do any personal work when I'm here, and then they make hell, and we're sinners, and they use the guilt and shame as some kind of virtue. And so everyone gets on the drip. They get on the drip, the drug, and they never do their personal work, because I can only know truth if I go to the church each week, and not forsake the assembling of ourselves.
Well, and it seems like the literal Biblios Helios believers seem to be pretty adamant and the most lost And it just seems odd that they are the ones that they should be reading the book, but they're not.
Right. They think they are. But the thing is unless you have the keys of knowledge, and even to be able to properly interpretate the verb-based, intuitive, metaphysical coded words. That's why the word allegory is in the Bible, the script. The word proverbs, the word parables, shadows, dark sayings, things hard to be understood. You can't read this thing just on the surface. You have to go. It goes way deeper than that. And once you start to understand that there's a pattern and there's a code, you're going to realize. Your realizer is going to start to realize, and your realizer are no longer going to be paralyzed by the pairs of lies that we've been hoodwinked. You know.
Yeah,
and you can't even see.
Well, I was watching something about recently that they just found, like, in the 1800s, the Nag Hammadi texts that actually correlate other elements of Jesus that the larger Catholic Church was trying to destroy, and how much of our history has been rewritten or changed, and when it is found, when things like that are discovered, it's not even a headline issue. People don't talk about it.
Of course. But even if they did talk about it, the programming, gram is a spell. That's why we all learn how to spell in grammar. But the programming and the chains on people's minds, on religious, are so strong that even if it was the light that shines in them, the binary coding light, they go into Stockholm syndrome, cognitive dissonance, and trauma bonding. Because if that's true, what you're saying, if this article is true and this is true, that means my whole life has been based on a lie, and I'm not willing. You could have, and that's how they've hidden the truth right in plain sight, is because they've literally, with those of the doctor's degrees, they've actually indoctrinated and gone in and done metaphysical electrical surgery in the brain waves of people's brains and in their heart drives, and they can't even know the truth, with it literally smacking them right in the face, because they're under a spell.
And we see it in movies. Movies are coming out, and flat out, the movie Free Guy. Everybody should watch Free Guy, and Barbie. These movies were blockbuster hits, made millions, and literally was just telling everybody that that's you.
Right. Yeah, they showed the whole white light program. The archons at the very end there, they showed the white light program. I mean, it's right in there. But and this is why we're here, is to enlighten individuals. But you got to learn to see the light, but go to the theater, but not go into deep hypnosis theta state. Nothing wrong with going in theta state in meditation, but be very sober on who you're allowing to pen a trait into your conscience. Because when you go into theta state and you watch the theater, you turn off all your firewalls, you turn off all of your alarms, and you're allowing any Tom, Dick, or Harry to come and penetrate into your conscience. And you can't even see the truth when it's right in front of you. I was there for decades. That's how I was for 2 decades. I was from video games and watching endless hours of TV. First 20 years of my life.
Well, yeah, I don't think you're the only one, and I think there's people that are in that state now. Maybe that's why they're doing a little more scrolling nowadays instead of sitting.
Right. Yeah. They're on a quest. It goes back to what we were saying on the outset. That people's minds are They're on a quest. They know, and the energy. I mean, I just got a jolt of a jolt of energy from something just came and hit me. But that's, people are in tune. They know that there's something that is going on, and energy is flowing. And even to those who don't even have a full understanding of this, the fact that their intuition and their desire for truth is there. The universe knows that they want to know the truth, and so they're giving little glimpses here and little downloads here and little downloads here, and it's going to start all connecting. They're going to start seeing the synchronicities, and that's what's happening now, and it can't be stopped. It can't be stopped. That's the paradox of this matrix. They knew by using the internet and the World Wide Web that it would enlighten the enlightened ones, the chosen ones, and their power. When they let give themselves permission, they would enlighten those that are desiring for truth.
That's all right. They seem friendly. Yeah. So, but don't you think that that's also needed as a polarity? You know,
Yes.
To go through that.
Oh yeah, for certain. I mean, I went through. I mean, I haven't. My talking about history and mystery. My past has been, my past has been a history, for most, and a mystery. But that's the whole thing of the paradox. I was a part of a culture for 10 years. I was a part of a culture for 10 years, and most people, and I didn't know, but I had to go through those things. I had to go through those things in order to know what I know now. It was a refining, a honing, it was a reformatting. I was, around some very nefarious individuals, but nevertheless, that's how the universe operates.
Right. Well, I say right like it was a right.
Correct.
So everybody's worried about their rights, and they've all taken the rights.
Correct. Yeah, it's definitely the truth is right in there, but you have to, and that's the whole thing. You got to allow your heart to be open to the right things, and there's going to have to, a lot of people are going to have to just come to that knowledge, that gnosis, which is the same thing as knowledge. A lot of those that have been religiously indoctrinated, they're afraid of that word gnosis, but the word no is in there. The G is silent, just like P is in silent in pneuma. But that gnosis, you add a O or a W to now, and you get gnosis. The same thing that the word now is in knowledge, and so when you come to the knowledge and you start to love yourself, you'll start to abort, throw those thoughts and all that program. You'll start to abort the mission, of Miss Ion, that the tell is in the spell, but the mission of Aries, that unfortunately many people have been entrapped in the mind with. But that's how you get out of this paradox, by facing the darkness, which is not even there. It's not even there, once you start
by deduction, right? That's how Einstein, that's how Tesla, they didn't try to learn more. They actually, they stopped learning, and this is how they got all their information, was from some kind of download.
Right.
Like where did that information come from before Einstein and Tesla documented it? Where did it come from?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's where you look at, and another great theta state, or also known as movie or documentary, where a lot of people unfortunately get their minds docked, like you put your phone on a dock. But another great movie is Peaceful Warrior with Dan Millman.
I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah. You might watch it next time around that you get
I watched some little clips here and there. It's a really good movie. It's just a movie that you want to give your full attention. Like, you know, you can tell, like, when you start a movie, you can tell, like, right away if it's gonna hit home, and you're like, immediately, it just locks you in. So finding time to watch it. Well, I'd like to watch it with Cade too.
Yeah, for certain. Yeah, and it will, you know, it'll be the right time, because in of that there, that's the one I would say, if you want to look at it from a metaphysical spiritual position, but that's the one where you see true quote unquote salvation take place, and he deals with his ego, which is not his amigo from Contigo. But one of the things that when he's going through the whole process of him deprogramming and his mentor that he manifests in his dreams, in the dream state, the whole movie is that he's like in a dream state. Most people see this as like reality that we live in, but nevertheless, he told him, he said, Dan, he says you need to go out and he says you need to go out to that car, because he was he says you need to go out and find truth that you haven't learned from a book or from the internet or encyclopedia. And that's what I was saying earlier, that it wasn't that I didn't have knowledge and this gnosis coming to me until the further I got away from religion, you know, from going to a building each week and being indoctrinated, you know, with the lies and deceptions.
Well, I don't know if is it more misinterpretation, a misunderstanding, like why it's either intentional or it's not known. I suppose there's many other options, but a steady mixture of both. I mean, you see tons of past stars that get in trouble. They're not even adhering, you know, their daily standards, their teachings, and so it sort of just makes you, well, and the Catholic Church is in tons of trouble all the time. Can't talk about why. Imagine that.
Yeah. Well, but really, and a lot of people aren't aware.
Yeah, they might stall it just on that alone. They might. I don't know if you can you hear me at all? Anybody out there? Check, mic check. Can hear me, or we lost Eric? Yeah, we lost Eric. Yeah, anybody want to join in? I should try to put up a request button up here if I knew how to do that. Oh, I just shared it back, and we'll see if I can. How do you get that to interact? Well, all right. It doesn't look like I'm gonna be able to get them back. It was good to check this out. Please follow Definition, and I liked some of his stories, shared some of his stories, and then follow for groundbreaking content, kind of. I post anything that's interesting to me, and that is helping me in my spiritual awakening. And that can't be said, you know, every journey everything that we do is a step towards our own individual awakening. And so you should have no guru, you should have nobody that you adhere to, follow, that the answers are within you. And this is slowly coming out. And it's helping people live in this daze. See that anagram on that word daze? Got us in a weekdays or weekend from the weekend. So let's see here. Let's see if we can get him back out here. All right, I connected you, or I sent you an invite. I'd like to put another one up there. There he is.
Okay.
There.
Okay. Yeah.
Disconnected.
Yeah. They.
Well, my battery was running low anyway, so I'm not going to say where I went to charge it. I just had to find a charger.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. I get the. Well, I'm surprised your phone didn't charge up with a high frequency that you resonate on.
Well, yeah. I think that's what it's trying to do now. Trying to connect me to, I can't even say it, but to a different Bluetooth.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a different source of communication. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. That's definitely, but yeah, that's where I don't know at what point it cut off earlier. But I would say that a lot of these churches out here, they're not maliciously not teaching this stuff. They just, for so many decades, this stuff has been hidden in plain truth. Even like the word hermeneutics. I talked to a hermeneutics professor 2-3 months ago, and I asked him about the etymology of hermeneutics, and he says, well, this is how we teach the scriptures. And I says, no. I says, what's the etymology of it? I says, let's break the word down. Let's do some word splitting. And I says, you get Hermes, like Hermes Trismegistus, and his eyes got about as big as silver dollars. And then I says, you have like Hermes, like the Egyptian god Thoth, and also Lucifer of information, the data, the light bearer, one that bears light, data. And then you get then you have Nu, N-E-U in there. It said hermeneutics, and he was like, his eyes got about as big as silver dollars, and because of truth being presented. And then and that's why $4.20. That's why so many people are not knowing the truth.
Well, that was my question, was why, is it intentional? Is it,
No,
is it unintentional? Is it a combination of both? It's obviously protected, but that churches are selling a product.
Yeah, well, it's a mixture. It all depends on what sect you go into and how high the people are, in the different buildings or the different organizations. Because some are, I know I was around some organizations where there's some people in some nefarious organizations, and so I know they know what they're doing because I was with them. I didn't know at the time, in hindsight, it was, but I know that there are those who know this thing and they're controlling. Then you have other people that are just other preachers, other men out there, women that are just, thank you, simple-minded, and they're trying to just do their best, but they don't they don't know what they're involved in, and they've been dumbed down. They're just passing on down the same wrong information.
Yeah. You playing ping pong? There he is. Well, all right. Well, this is good. I'm gonna go get some chores done
Okay.
on the Sabbath here.
Yeah, on Saturn's day here. Yeah, we can talk about El and the elites and Bethel and the elders. The people, if they were interested, they could go check out some of the works of who was that there? Jordan Maxwell.
Yeah, Jordan Maxwell.
Yeah, Jordan Maxwell.
Well, it is kind of interesting because I seem to have the most energy on Saturn day. So why would that be the Sabbath and the day that you can't even study, right? You can't even read on your first day off.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're not even supposed to start a fire. I mean, and that's where you find people in religion. They can't even see intuitively. You weren't even supposed to start a fire, but yet all these people, that want to try to put themselves under the law, quote unquote, they have their fireplaces going and they have their furnaces going. So it goes to show you that the Bible, the Book of Metaphysics, has much deeper meanings than what has been revealed. So, and that's why.
Well, I was listening to something last night on the latest theories of like the Lynx and the pyramids, that they're not even from the same civilization, and how that this history has been hidden in layers and passed down, and and then the law came because the law had to control, because there obviously a spiritual war at that time.
Right. Well, that and it's just over time, people's hearts become hard, and that's why it talks about the stuff.
Hold on here, we might have got dropped again. Oh, there he is.
But that's what people's hearts. It says, it's their hearts are like stone, and so you can't even use it. In Jeremiah 17:1 and the Book of Metaphysics, it says, that the tip of a ready writer with the pin of an iron pen with the tip of a diamond cannot even graven upon the heart, and that's because people lost their ability to trust, to have their pineal gland was calcified, but to where they don't listen to intuition, or they hear the intuition, but because of all the malwares and viruses and Trojans in their hard drive, they're like that double-minded man in James 1:22. They hear the intuition, they're getting the download, but then because they're double-minded, they're unstable in all their ways. They turn and they forget what manner of man they are, and they live in a place of duality, also known as a carnal mind.
The average person doesn't the mind stop when you make that decision to believe? You don't have to do any more work, and so you're good. You just gotta just bank on it happening. Bank that you're not going to go to hell anymore. Bank on it that you've made the right decision, and then you can rest now. Put it on cruise control and let Jesus take the wheel.
Right. And you just go each week to your church service, just like you go to a therapist, do your word splitting on therapist, and you pay your sessions to your therapist or your counselor, the same way you pay your tithes and offerings, each week, and you are constantly relying on someone else to do the shadow work and the personal work. That's never going to happen unless you do it yourself.
Well, and I just recently have been looking into what tithing was and when it started and when it was implemented. And that might be one of the probably the largest hits below the belt of how the principle of tithing wasn't even monetary and wasn't even required in these healing centers.
Right. And it all became about control, and everything is energy. I had someone ask me, can you explain what everything is energy? I mean, even the electoral college votes, when people go to the polls, the North and South poles, and they cast their votes, and they put people in charge over them. They're allowing their energy, their mind energy, to be extracted from them, and pick religion, pick education, ion, pick whatever institution ion you want. But this is what's happening. Is that they're allowing others to come in and mine the MINE, the MINE, mine their mind, and extract all their energy from them. And it's just, and they've been and I say we, I'll be inclusive. We've been programmed to do this when we have an option of, we can say, sorry, there's no room at the inn, there's no room at the mine. The mining of others here is done. It's time to rebuild my own mine.
Well, and then it's back to that deduction, taking away what isn't serving you or isn't working for you. And when you are able to turn off the music and the negative frequencies and all that, and let that open up that heart, then you realize that there's really all that struggle, all that resistance to maintain the energy needed for the ego. This energy just flows through you, and obviously that has to be the two polarities of the sun and moon, and that process that you were talking about, that secretion.
Right.
Like I have to think that everything is in layers, as above, so below, and everything also works in a way where you can see it. And why are our tongues connected to our feet? Things like that we just don't even look into. Somebody might see that as a fun bar trivia question, and but what are the reasons for the crazy things like that? Or the fact that Adam was created from dirt, but Jesus had to be birthed from the womb.
Right. That's why it says in 1 Corinthians 15 that he was the second atom that came from the womb, the moon, the womb. And that's why it's the man, womb man, the man of the womb. There's definitely a lot of things that have never been questioned and looked at. And that's,
or that 28-day moonstraw cycle that, like we were just talking about at the beginning, that this calendar is all jacked up, and the information that they even put out in almanacs is wrong. And if you don't look up and see, and there's even a movie about that, Don't Look Up, where nobody looks up when this comet is coming to destroy the earth, and nobody looks up, nobody believes it.
Huh. Yeah, that's funny, because talking about power, but DTE, I don't know if you remember back in the day by Isaiah Thomas, we're talking back in the mid 80s, he would always tell us, look up, where are your wires at, but
yeah.
People are so disconnected, pun intended, but people are so disconnected from being with nature, and I think you found it, but they're afraid to go out to the forest. Because what do you do when you go out to the forest? It's for resting and for grounding and for disconnecting from this social media, World Wide Web.
Yeah. Well, it's even hard to explain, because people are like, why do you like it out there so much? Like my family's question, like as I'm sitting out there and I do a little exercise, I go on a little walk, but really I do it as the reward in it is not doing anything and peeling those socks and shoes off, and immediately your mind goes blank. Like And if you can combine this with sun gazing, it's even more so. Like if you at the right times, at sundown and sun up. If it's during the day, I don't recommend staring at the sun, but being out in the sun and grounding combined, it's just magical.
Oh yeah, I mean well, I have to go back and respond. You say magical, but it's like magical and miracle are one and the same thing. You change out a few a G and an R, and you get the Moses and was doing the same things that Janus and Jambres was. But it's but yeah, miracle is magical, but that's where that suffix al. You start if you just do a word search, say all the words that have al, you'll find that they're all talking about energy exchange. Where it's always mental. Your mind is what? Data, delta, gamma, beta, alpha, theta, mental, and electrical. Obviously, you have al. That's energy exchange, and so it goes back to everything being energy exchange. And it's quite fascinating that when you get out there and you ground in Earth, you discharge those free radicals, which are the positive ions, from your body. And of course, everything. This discussion is only for entertainment purposes only, and everyone should seek, from within for their true counsel of what they need to do for themselves. But I know what I found for myself, and I could probably say for you, doing these things, earthing and grounding and just literally disconnecting from everything that has a trap on the mind is free.
Well, the whole process for me, it wasn't even a spiritual journey. It was just getting to know where I left off. Where,
Right.
You know what I mean? Like wandering 40 years in the desert. Well, it wasn't so bad because I had ways. I still had the power. I guess I don't know a better word. I still had the confidence that I was on the path, yet knowing at the same time I was far.
Oh yeah, no, because that was your subconscious telling you that there's truth and there's light, but it's been maligned, and people were bewitched by crafty words. So yeah, the subconscious was always telling you, stay on the path, don't give up.
Well, the realization of hearing, I quit using the word good morning was part of it, and I just ask people now if they're mourning, because it just immediately being aware of that first day. Well, even before then, before even waking up, before even leaving, like programming or setting the mind to a space and an idea of where you can literally play out your entire day and then some, beyond your wildest imaginations. But if you sit there and you're worried about being where you're at, or that you're not enough, then you don't even get out of bed. And that's kind of where we're at sometimes.
Well, and that's why the tell is in the spell, but good, quote unquote, good morning is actually, they added an O in there, and people don't know, it's God morning. And so your God is morning, and then why would that be if there was what perceived as a God? Because of civilization and them cursing themselves with their own words and the spells of the Phoenicians that gave them, instead of them knowing that they are already the light of the world. I mean, Jesus, the great mystic light worker, didn't come to tell how great he was, but how great you are. And you're the light.
You're saying that there's energy in words.
Well, how do you think we're telepathically mish ions of the ionic brain right now? I mean, most people don't think about this, but this is we're all in the one collective frequency, and everyone tunes in, has their tuner, their pineal gland, but that's how this is all transmitting right now through electromagnetic pulses of the eternal now that we're all in. I mean, it gets some pretty, but that's why by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. And that's why, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Even Job, which I talked to a linguistics and a scholar, a true scholar that has quote unquote gift of tongues, that can pretty much look at Sanskrit and any kind of languages and boxes and fishes or whatever kind of language that someone used throughout history, whatever that might be. But he said that the book of Job is written in metaphors and allegories for a reason. But nevertheless, Job said, he says, the very thing which I have feared has come upon me. And so he feared that one day that his kids would all be gone and that he would lose everything. And if you just go and read the book of metaphysics there, the book of Job, everything he feared came upon him. Because why? Whatever you meditate upon and whatever you magnify, you will, from the metaphysical realm, you will manifest and materialize into this realm of duality.
Through the matter. Through the matter. What's the matter? What's the matter?
The matter is.
What's the matter? What's the matter?
Yeah, your mater. You got mater from what was that? Cars, the movie Cars.
Yeah.
That movie was loaded. They showed a bunch of sky magic in there, and they were conditioning people to accept the sky magic, that they're playing tic-tac-toe 3 in a row up in the sky. But mater, that was the tow truck, and that's interesting. How what do you do? You have a matter, and mater needs to come and tow you home. See, you start to look at this stuff intuitively, and it's just like the insights and knowledge is just like it's all right there, and it's been all right in there. And when you become enlightened, and you don't want to go to a wake. Everyone is saying wake up. The wake is the end of a ship. And what happens when you go to a funeral, also known as a wake? You're going to what? To where the dead are. So even that right there, people are cursing themselves and telling everyone to wake up. You're telling them to stay asleep. that'll quote unquote arise. Instead of saying waken, you want to rise. That's why you look at the sunrise and talking about earlier on the outset there, and Jesus rising from the dead. But look at the word resurrection. What does the sun do? It rises. It goes up. And so that's why you want to grand rising. Or I greet the divinity that's in you. There's so many things that you start to change those thoughts and those words, which are frequency based, which are power based. Your life.
You can see it. You can see it. After a while, you can see the effect that mentality, that mental, electrical, whatever's going on, you can see it where, and just look at your old photos. Just look at the state of mind of where you were in the past and think of nostalgic moments where you instantly reconnect to those feelings of where you were, and you have to literally go through mourning because you can't be that again.
Right.
When you could be more.
Well, and that's once again, and we can even look at that. When you capture a picture, you're capping it. You're putting a top on it. You're limiting yourself. And so when you look at that picture, and we, just like the Phoenicians who gave us the phonics, they gave us the phoenix, they gave us photography. But that's where you look at and you start to realize, when you start to contemplate this stuff and disassociate from all the spells that the Phoenicians, they even made us deaf onto, DEAF, deaf Phoenician. But you realize that there is no past and there's no future. There's only right now. So when you're looking at that captured moment in the mind, you're looking at that picture, and it was the now then, but you weren't in your right state of mind. You had or you were in a state of bliss, and you were resonating on a high frequency, and then Now you look at that and it's like, wow, my life has changed. Well, no, you might have someone else operating your hard drive and your motherboard, and you have to, do some personal work to recapture what others have taken power of the mind that you willingly or knowingly or unknowingly allowed others to take over your hard drive. So, yeah, it's some interesting stuff. It's probably this is probably too much for some people and maybe not enough for others, but that's what's nice about this platform or any platform. It's like a book. You can put it on pause, digest it, and take more. And others are like, man, is this all you got, man? I mean, not to be an insult, but they're like, man, this is great stuff.
Well, everybody is at a different phase too. So,
Yeah.
and being aware of that is huge. That's why we're seeing so much fighting. Seeing people can't even have a normal conversation, regardless on the platform, because they have separate identities. And so, and people love that. So the more debating, the more arguing, people are in tune to that, instead of looking for the peace that they're actually on here looking for.
Right. Yeah, they're so programmed to that the part of the Sun Tzu, and the art of war, divide, conquer, and rule the mind. So they live it's like they're a child, because that's what a child's mind does. They just get used to, you just get used to the yelling of the environment from when their hard drive was fragmented in their formative years. It's like they just enjoy. They never stopped watching WWF with, Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, and that's what's going on in their mind, and they can't find a place of peace. So they're so used to their parents that rent their mind in twain. The drug is you just find, all this drama and all these traumatized people in their debates online or on TV, and it's their drug. It's their drug from never doing the personal work. Oh yeah, man. I don't say this lightly, but I don't talk from a place of abstract theory about the things I'm talking about. I'll never ask anyone to do anything that I haven't done or that I'm not willing to do myself.
Well, that's a pretty solid principle to just live by, because you can't really vouch for anybody, and you can't make anybody else change their mind, the mindset that they're in. Yet people are spending I think the latest stats are 5 to 6 hours a day scrolling.
Right. Yeah. Because what they're doing is no different than doing a selfie. See, these every good preacher has 3 or 4 closes. So I know we said we were going to close, but the frequency picked up here. But when you look at these black cell phones, and you look at these black they're a scry screen. You go over there to 1 Samuel, and Samuel, King Saul, kicked all the healers out, also known as if you're going to use ad hominem, but to call someone a witch, they're actually healers. But she had a cell phone. She had a crystal, also known as a crystal ball, and she tapped into the eternal now of the multiverse. She rubbed it, just like what do we do? They scroll. She rubbed the magic ball. We scroll the magic phone, and it taps into the eternal now of past, present, and future. And so most people just use it as a drug, and like a lot of practicing Christians. I mean, I was, but a lot of practicing, Christians, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's where you're at right now. That's perfectly fine. I get it. But they'll say that the Ouija boards, are evil, But when you look at your cell phone, you look at your computer, what do? You have a cursor, and then you have your keyboard, and then you ask the question, and the next thing you know, the cursor starts moving, and you get your instant answer up onto the chamber. Notice how all the cell phones and TVs, I'm looking at 3 TVs right now. Why aren't they triangles? Why aren't they circles? There's something about these magic phones, and because they're wanting to do the selfies, or they'll take a cell, CELL, a selfie, and they'll look in the glass, but they'll never look at the man in the glass. They'll never look at the man in the mirror. And so they live in a perpetual state of glamorization, glamour magic, glamour magazine, so that way they never look at the man in the mirror, and that's why they just love scrolling for 5 and 6 hours. It's the new digital dementia. It's the new drug, you know.
Well, I encourage. That's why I encourage content creation, because that alone, that practice, regardless of who it finds, it's still somewhat of a release of that creativity. And well, of course, you got to practice time limits because it can get carried away. But I think that's why some of this truth is getting out there. Other people on many different levels are experiencing this in different ways.
Yeah, because they're realizing for the first time in their life that they don't have to rely on the outside source, and that they have abilities, they have gifts.
There's I don't know if you know who Esoteric is, Justin Sledge. He's actually from Detroit.
Oh.
I was going to ask you about him, but he's a philosophical theologian.
Oh, yeah, I just recently came across them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I really like his stuff, but it's really hard to understand because you don't know where he leans or what he basically deduces everything historically, and does a really good job of laying out that timeline and basically dismissing absurdities like maybe like physical alchemy and things like that, where there was a lot of hoodwinking going on, a lot of lying and cheating. Like, he uncovers a lot of the hidden truths in history, so that's pretty cool. But even he is at a standpoint where he's asking, are the Gnostic mystics, are they right? Because he can't pin down logically something that can prove that it's not valid in our experiences, at least. But that's the craziest thing. Like you were talking about capturing moments digitally or whatever, that is somehow playing into this, because the more that you tell, the more that you share, the less that it actually takes place.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it sounds like he's on a quest for himself, because it's that, and he has, I don't know his background, but intuitively, just looking at what I did, potentially the things that he grew up in and he was unaware of, and allowed himself to be indoctrinated and wired and programmed to lean towards a certain sect of belief. He knows there's more, but what he's doing potentially, and I've seen this for myself, those, that will make excuses and continue searching when they know the truth, but they have to go through a very slow process. Some people like things quick, and some people like things drawn out. Everyone's temperament is different, but a lot of times when people are on a journey and they keep on moving the goalpost, or they're searching for things, they're not wanting to let go of their safety net. They're having to slowly cut away those roots, slowly do those surgeries, and using those layers, instead of doing it one surgery at a time, they're prolonging it. But to me, and I'm not certain who coined that phrase, it was I think a Japanese warrior, which said, it doesn't matter how many times you stop when you're climbing the hill, as long as your feet keep moving. I mean, and that's what it is, and that's why these platforms have empowered so many people, because people they know it's not in these buildings called churches. There's truth out there, and that's why I talk about, I finally, I was thinking about the other day, I was typing a comment out to someone on a different platform, and I said I finally gave myself permission. I finally know, because back in 2016 was when my intervention work, I went through a major intervention work of just completely deprogramming, dewiring, denouncing, dispelling, and allowed my hard drive to be renewed, rewired, and reprogrammed back to the original operating system. But people around that I was around, they said I gave myself permission, and And I try without trying to try.
What was part of that process?
So I went there for sale. It was the premise is it was based on learning how to sell, learning how to sell, and learning how to present, how to persuade people that don't want to be persuaded. And it was a very smart word wizard, marketer, father, husband, just a great soul, almost like a Moses. It was to free the people's minds, but most people don't have a problem talking. The problem is that they have a lot of malwares, that a lot of viruses, a lot of things in their hard drive, which actually allow them to stop letting that light that's in them. And I posted it in a comment, but a picture, Marianne Williamson. It was an 8-day process, but the first thing there, the quote Marianne Williamson was used, and it was, or the poem. And a lot of people know Nelson Mandela when he was freed from the cell of his mind, the freedom. He no longer had liberty, but he had true freedom. But what is your deepest fear? And in essence, that's, I don't know it verbatim. You can go and look it up. But in essence, it says, what is your deepest fear? Your deepest fear is not that you're inadequate. Your deepest fear is that you're powerful beyond measure. It's not your darkness which most frightens you, but it's your light. It says, we are all the children of God. And it says, and we were all meant to shine. Not just some of us, but all of us. It says, and when we let our light shine, we automatically give freedom to others to let their light shine. And it's been an 8-year process. And beginning of this year, I transitioned out of my body. I had an out-of-body experience because I've been hiding, have you say, like a Moses. When you watch Charlton Heston, every East Tar, Let My People Go, they're on ABC, and they would show that thing there. And he was like hiding in the land of sin, but, earlier this year I had a Moses experience where my knee burned and it didn't consume, and had an out-of-body experience. And because I've been hiding and suppressing this knowledge, and I hadn't finally given myself permission to get to where I am now. And so I started going live, making live Facebook, for an hour, 2 hour at a time, and letting that light out. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. And I finally now know what they were saying is when they give themselves permission. It's taken me 8 years. So anyone at the sound of my voice, just know that time does not exist in our mind, in our conscience where we're operating now. It does in this physical realm, but just know that we don't compare ourselves by ourselves, that those that do are not wise. Just know if you keep on just going and allowing the universe to work in you, and ultimately people ask me, they said, Eric, how did you deprogram from a little decade of being part of a cult, a very toxic, narcissistic cult, and 30 years of life prior to that, at the age of 40, how did you completely disassociate and disconnect in a matter of a year and a half? And I said, well, I allowed myself to get naked in the sheets. Basically, I was by myself, and also in the mind, I allowed myself to go all the way back to from the age of conception, to where I allowed myself to literally have everything, just every malware, everything negative that ever happened. I just allowed it just be taken out at one time.
Why do you think that is so offensive? What you just described. Why is that so offensive to those people that you were surrounded by?
Oh, because once you find out how great you are, how powerful you are, how powerful your light is, how salty you are, how a salty individual, and that source and the solar plexus, and all of the universe resides in you, and the power resides in you, and you no longer have to rely on systems and institutions that get you to question your intuition, and you not only have liberty, but you have freedom, and you realize that you never needed them, and you don't need the church, and you don't need any kind of AA or any kind of culture or any kind of TikTok or any kind of anything. When you realize that you are source, and that you have all the source and all of the universe and all of light in you, What good do you need now someone to keep you on a drip and to be relying? The total freedom, it's indescribable, and you can't pay for it. You can't pay for it. It's free because why it's free. It's always
after,
inside of you.
so after that process started, and after you went to that presentation and you started this journey, what are some things that you like physically did or changes that you made? Were they more mindset or were they were actual, ritual?
Well, it was dressing. One of the things in there is I started dressing differently. Started dressing more business, and that was just genre. But the thing is once again, the tell is in the spell. You go and you gotta look and it's like, why do people, oh hey, it's Friday night, or you're going to a wedding, or you're going to a graduation, or graduation ceremony, or you're going to church. Why is it people say, oh, I get to dress down, I'm so excited, I get to dress down? No. What do? Hey, I get to dress up. I get to have the outside. I get to put
now they do at the churches.
Well,
they promote it. You can come as you are.
Yeah, dressing down.
Which I don't know, but I understand the terminology. I don't, I prefer to be able to come, like, however, but also I don't even know why I want to go anyway. But.
Well, yeah, but just as a whole, if you look at it, I started to change my thought process. I had to start all over again at the age of 39 on how to re-love myself. And that's ultimately what people are doing, and they don't know that. I mean, you could sum up the summation of everything is you are learning to re-love yourself. Pick whatever religion, pick whatever institution ion that you want. You're learning to re-love yourself and trust your intuition. That's what you're doing, and that's what people are searching to find out who they are. I mean, as it says, is not written in your law that you're gods. Right there in the New Testament and the Old Testament. God, the universe, is letting you know, love yourself. You can't love others until you love yourself. And so end of that process, that's where, I started to dress different. I started to think different. I started to change my thought processes. I started to set boundaries. One of the biggest things I did is I set boundaries. I was going to bound Aries and no longer allow Aries to have control over my mind through other individuals. And so in binding Aries, I started to water treatment is one of the things on reverse osmosis and water softener. It's an ion exchange system. And so I started to set boundaries, and I started to eliminate the negative ions in my life, the iron, the calcium, the magnesium, all those things that clog up your mind and clog up your pores and clog up all your appliances and your hot water tank. And I started to set boundaries, and I would just, and actually I started to look at listening to classical music. Classical music is the classic frequency and vibration that will start to free the mind from the 808 music, from the 440 music that they changed, from all the binary coding of the yelling, the screaming, all the TV shows, all the indoctrination. The classical music is where we see it, even in 1 Samuel 15, David. He played the harp, which is probably around 432 hertz, but he played the harp. And for King Saul, who had an evil spirit, he had malwares, viruses in him. And he says when David played the harp, he says the evil spirits left, he was well and refreshed. And the parasites, he probably had to go and relieve himself, because those parasites inside of him, which really are the host. Most people have the parasites in them, they're the host for the low frequency entities being them. And so from that 432 hertz, they're finding that out now with certain machines and certain frequency machines. It's blasting inside, but the parasites can't.
Yeah, you can see that on if you've ever seen the people fishing on the beach where they use vibration to draw up the eels.
Oh.
Yeah, it drives them right out of the ground. They hook up a string right to the hole, and they come right out.
Yeah, everything is frequency. But that's basically, in essence, I started listening to the classical music here in Michigan, you know, on a local radio station, and not jazz, because jazz is completely different frequency. Jazz by night, classical by day, and even that word AL is in there again. As I said earlier, it's an electrical, because you're rewiring the frequency of the, you know, you get away from being in a state of alpha brainwash, and you start to get into the beta frequency.
Why does that terminology, that EL, like, how does that play into like religious terminology with angles and angels and all that?
Well, because everything is sacred geometry, all letters, and so letters and numbers are elements. So we need to do, that's one of the keys in discovering the keys of knowledge and breaking free from the deaf Phoenicians. But you have electrical ments, Ella, E-L, ments, and ments is synonymous with mind. So wherever you see the word ment, like encouragement, you encourage the mind. Entrapment, you entrap the mind, and the word wrath is entrap. And so in of that there, that all letters and numbers are elements and they're sacred geometry, but for every angle, just like you have a different degrees, and this is intuition. As I'm talking and channeling here, this is just coming to me. I've never even thought about this here, but if you look at all letters, like an M is actually a W, is actually an E, and it's actually a 3, all depending on what angle, what degree you have it. But if you look at all letters, they all have a degree, and those degrees, I'm not doing the math, and you're prone more to mathematically seeing that, but that could potentially be how you can determine the frequency of each letter, which determines the output of that letter in combination and in conjunction function. You know, what's your function? That's quite interesting. But in of that there.
Well, I'm just thinking about it visually. If I could illustrate it, if you just put an M all the way together and you drew, you know, many. If you filled up the whole sheet, it would look like a wave. It would look like a sound wave, and it would be, you know, symmetrical. And the same would be with the 3, up and down. You know, they would each have their own little frequency, but actually they would all look the same.
Right, and then it would even change. Say if you made a U, so if you change the font and you made a U, you would get it even, because now instead of being a V, like if you have with we, you get the W and the M is one and the same. But what if you change the font? That's why. See, this is coming to me right now. I'm literally I'm seeing this in the mind right now. I've never even thought about this. I've never even talked about this. But this is why different fonts. When you change the font, why do you think they change the font? Because when you change the font, it has a different effect and a different frequency that it resonates at in the minds of the people that it's being broadcasted at.
Well, the font would be the frontal
lobe, the frontal lobe of the brain, because it's being broadcasted, casting, where it would be the frontal of front AL. Once again, you can't get away. Anytime there's part of transmitting ions, transmission ions, everything is energy exchange. Everything is energy, and so that's why the letters, and that's why composers are really like magicians, almost like Lucifer. I mean, they're magicians. They're literally controlling the people's minds. That music, it's the universal language. It does not need angles and language. Language is the word angel, and angle is within language, which is sacred geometry, and with music, it's its own form of language. But it's binary. It's telepathic. It's happening in the mind, and you don't even have to know any specific language that composer speaks. We would perceive in grammar, because that music transcends that prefix trans. You got to get that prefix trans, that suffix ion. I mean, it's all right in there, but you don't. The whole purpose of all of these things that I've discovered and that universe has brought to me or allowed me to remember is it's breaking the code. You're breaking the code, and you're breaking the chains. You're breaking the chains in the mind and all the spell. you're dispelling, retuning, and you're rebelling. And as you're saying, you're allowing that the harmonical frequencies of these letters to be in a more smoother frequency, and so you don't get tied up. Because what does cursive writing look like? Cursive writing looks like chains, and you're getting bind up in the mind, and you have to loose, and you have to be like the waves in the sea, and you have to move with the groove, and you just become that harmonical frequency on the ocean, on the Mosh ions of the ocean.
Well, it's in the alphabet, right? The first two letters.
AL. And this is where you get the alpha and the omega, the om. But this is why letters, and even there's another Proverbs 18:21, that's why it says death and life. And you really could call it the book of paradox instead of book of Proverbs, but it says death and life are in the power, the frequency of the tongue. And they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Here's something that might blow you away if you've never heard it. But you look at the tongue, what does the tongue look like? It looks like a double-edged sword, or it looks like an A. Once again, the beginning of the alphabet. But if you take words, WORDS, drop the S on words, and put the S in front of word, you have what? Sword. And so that's why our words literally have literal, visceral, mental, right, mind energy, MENT-AL, mental power in the alphabet. Yeah, this stuff is too good. And the thing is why aren't they teaching this stuff in school? Well, first of all, I believe, and I know that only the elite, the people that run this world, know this stuff. But the thing is when you're plugged into Source and you're here for a reason, which my name means King, Eternal Protector, and Free Man, my names, Source will give it right to you, and you'll bypass all of these high-end institutions that the elite operate, and they've kept this stuff free from people being free in their mind. Because once people realize what they are and who they are as Source, as power or sort, what good do they need these books? And that's where the retuning and the bells start to rebel and start to bring true freedom and liberty to people's minds.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot to soak in.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said, I'm 207 years. I'll let people do a little homework. I let people figure out what the old, what they say, archaic way. But 207 years, that would be 47, 7 and 40 years. But that's why I've always been thinking about these things my whole life. But I had limitations that were set on me by my parents, who are very intuitive and very smart, but because of almost a generational curse or a virus that kept on transferring from one hard drive to another, I never loved myself and trusted myself to know and see these things and to speak about these things openly. And so now it's open. Now I'm open as a book, and able to do things that I can't even frankly describe. And people ask me, how are you able to do and see and just start channeling and seeing things right in plain sight? I said, I don't know. I says, would you ask Bach or Beethoven or Chopin or the great artists or the great scientists, how they're just able to do it? They love themselves, and they tune in and they tune everything else out, and the universe just is revealing truths to them, not for themselves. I mean, you can use it. That's the whole paradox in this realm. I could use my knowledge and power for nefarious things, but I know that's why I potentially have had to come back so many times into this dimension, is because the malwares that were in me, they took power over me, and I used my power for evil and not for good. And this time I'm making sure that I stay, as they say, on the straight and narrow path, to use my power and my light to free the people's minds and to take them into the promised land, and not continue to use mental gymnastics and accuse and excuse one another and wander around in the wilderness because of their great lack of faith, or great lack of fear, which really a lack of faith is the result, is the essence, the root of having fear. In the word ear is in fear, and you have fear in your heart because of the malwares and the parasites that keep you from being the light that you truly are. So.
Well, I know you've helped me out a lot, and one of the things, like when you look back at pivotal moments, I think one of the most pivotal was, like you mentioned, listening to Beethoven. I fell asleep one time listening to rap music. Every once in a while, you could get a radio station from Detroit, and I fell asleep listening to rap music, and I woke up listening to classical music, and I was just at some sort of a peace. I was at there was something different that unlocked in me, and it was subconscious because I wasn't awake, but I was aware.
Right. Yeah. No. It's It's definitely it's because the anagram of sleep is spell, and so most people when they go into sleep, they go in the theta state. And they actually break free from the spell. That's the paradox of it, of the spell of this duality, and they go into a place of singularity, and that's where they're recharging their lithium batteries in their body. But that's why it is very, very sobered. I keep on going back to the book of metaphysics, and people say, "Well, Eric, I thought you said you're against Christianity. I thought you're against." No, I'm against the religion, but the book of metaphysics, it's there. There's keys of knowledge there. The secrets have been revealed to me. I've been given a set of these keys, but to say all of that there, I keep on referencing the book of metaphysics, which you go over to 1 Corinthians 15:33, where the master of master word wizards, Paul was a master, ex-master word wizard. He says over there in 1 Corinthians 15:33, it says, "Be not deceived, evil communication ions." You could synonymously, evil frequencies, low frequencies, corrupt good manners. So that would be the equivalence to like 808 frequency, 440 frequency. People using low frequency language, cursing. That goes back to that whole frequency. You break down those letters. So if evil communications corrupts one's good manners, the way they think, the way they eat, the way they process, everything about them. What is the converse of evil communication? What if you have good communication, which would be equivalent to 432, to 369 frequency, to different frequencies, to someone that's an altruist, someone that's positive, someone that's resonating on a high frequency? Well, that's going to improve your communications. That's going to improve your whole life. It's going to improve everything because you start to detox, you start to set boundaries, and now you're playing classical music. It's a proven fact with classical music that all of the higher end colleges and universities, they're playing classical music on their universities, versus you go to other places, party campuses and that, and what are they playing there? They're playing mind control. They're mind altering low frequencies, rap and all this other stuff, because it keeps people's minds in a place of alpha state instead of being in theta state. I mean, it's everything. Everything when it comes down to it. If you want to know the mysteries of the Bible or the script or the universe or whatever this multiverse, whatever this thing is that we have, you have to think in energy, frequencies, the current C's. It's CIES, but the Phoenicians were very, very, very sneaky. I think there was a movie. Who is that from that movie? It's very sneaky.
Sergeant Schultz?
Notes, but there was a movie. There was a movie I think made in the 90s or whatever, and this guy.
Was it like Get Smart?
Yeah, he ended up getting these Ferraris in the very end. He was a servant in a house in this big old mansion, this estate or something like that, but he would always run and he'd go very sneaky. I forget the name of the movie. Someone would know what it is, but nevertheless, this is why things have been very sneaky, and this is why the book has never been. There's never been any magic. There's only been a belief in the magic. There's only been a belief that you have to go without, that you have to go and be educated through their systems, and you have to go and you have to get your degrees. If you do the anagram of Samson, you'll find who the degrees are. Just like if you do plastering, you have a square hawk. You have like a square plaster board that you hold the plaster on, and then you take it off of that. And the master plasterers, masters, that's where you get your degrees, and that's where you wear your top hat. You wear your degree when you graduate. Grade, you go through the different grades of base grade, soil, limestone. The tell is in the spell, and everything is in there. So when you graduate and you get your master's, or from high school, and then you have to go, you're participating in a group that has nefarious individuals and also good individuals in there, that the Masoons. But you even see that there, why do you like canning? See, they did a lot of great things, like canning jars. What's the number one canning jar still out there today manufactured? The Mason canning jar. But that's actually, in that is, you have moon and sun. The sun, Mason, so when you break that down etymological position, it's the son of Ma. Just like Nicholson, the son of Nickel. Thompson, the son of Tom. So you have Masoon, just like a monsoon is the sun and moon. You have two different polarities, two different energies that are creating out in the oceans, out in the seas, SCIES, and seas, CEAS, seas, you see. So
I'm sure it's just a coincidence.
Oh yes. Just like heart is earth, and the anagram of wow is wow. That's really wowing. When someone is silent, which I am silent, believe it or not, contrary to what this might be here. But the anagram of silent is listen, and that's why I was able to start to understand and overstand so many things, is because I was silent for decades. And I just observed, and so stored up all the energy, and then started to love myself. Went to the deprogramming, and so now I'm just a conduit of light and energy that flows through. And sometimes I have to turn up the voltage when you have someone that's a little stillborn or in rebel lion, and they go into primitive childish regression. As a they might be a 45-year-old body, but they have a 5-year-old mind, and that's how you're able to find out how old someone is mentally. And that's when is when opposition and confrontation come up, whether online, offline, even offline. It's still all mental. It's not physical. But you find out that I would say 90%, maybe 95% of adults go into primitive childish regression, and that's why you see, hey, why is that adult? Why is that guy acting like a kid? Why is that demonstration, or is it a demonstration? Because they just went loony into the age of when their hard drive was fragmented in their formative years, in the eternal now of the mind, and they're operating on a 5-year-old mind but a 40-year-old body, and they're been able to figure out how to work the system, but they don't know why they get triggered like that, and they get triggered because it's never been made aware of, because this stuff is kept secret, so people don't become free. And they have to rely on school systems and churches and clubs and this organization, because they're trying to find their place in this world. When really all they got to do is just look at the man in the mirror. If you want to make the world a better place, you got to look at your face. So
I think it's Rumi that said that what you are looking for is that what it is seeking. For that.
Yeah, that's and see, and even that there, I was just at a recital yesterday, and they were quoting an individual, a scholar from back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. But I really started to see this, and you helped to bring this to light with others about a year ago, about the verb-based intuitive insight. The Lakota Indians, for all foreign languages except for our English now, since a certain group of families changed our our Bibles and our education, our grammar and our linguistics of our language to a noun-based, counterintuitive, but all foreign languages and older writings, English writings, were all verb-based, intuitive, to where you not only knew that there was a forest in the trees, you knew that there was a whole complete ecosystem in the forest or the trees, metaphysically and metaphorically. And so,
well, there wasn't one tree. There wasn't right. There wasn't separation.
Right. There was no division.
The bird wasn't a bird.
Right. There was always more. You know, you were connected to nature. You were connected to the universe. You know, tree hugging wasn't. You know, tree hugging was something that you want to do. Grounding and earthing and spending time out in the forest. Your mind wasn't filled with. And here's what they did. You know, everyone has all electronics now, and they have this. I'm going to buy this. This will save you more time, and the microwave will save you more time, and the dishwasher will save you more time, and this cell phone or this app's going to save you more time. And people would say, "Man, do you notice how every time it's just going by so fast, and I have no time?" The reason why you have no time in your mind is because you've been deceived and desensitized to having all of these devices that are sucking your energy from you. and you have no time because you have no time to go to the forest for resting your mind. And that's why the great mystic, Jesus says, take my yoke upon you, for my burden is light. For my burden is easy and my yoke is light. To cast, and why? What do you got to do? What is that metaphor? It's telling you to take all your thoughts up into the temple, and you take and you offer them up there, and you just let them go. Just like in the incense, you burn those things up, you sacrifice them in the temple, and you just take those things up, and you no longer, and you let them go up. That's what the whole thing. I did a short teaching on Facebook last week about the temple. Wherever you see that temple in the Bible, it's always speaking about the mind. It's not speaking about a physical place. It's never been. And that's what even Jesus and God and Paul and all the other characters in there have always been trying to tell people. It's not about the physical. It's about the spiritual. It's about the metaphysical. You got to look at that book as the glass mirror, what it is. You don't need it, but some people do need it in the beginning. You know, that's why it says newborn babes. New, not old. Newborn babes desire the sincere milk of the word of God that they may grow. The gnosis. But there comes to a point to where, man, it'd be kind of weird if you saw a 13-year-old or a 40-year-old still sucking on his mom, which you have. That's what the equivalence of what religion is today. Just pick your religion. And Paul, the great ex-word wizard, he says that in 1 Corinthians 3, 1 through 3, and then even in Hebrews 5, 12 through 14. He says, I can't come to you with strong meat, which is intuition, which is metaphysics. I can't come to you that. I have to come to you with the first oracles. There's a oracle. There's a word that oracles are supposed to be bad, but then the word oracle is in there. But he said, you guys want to stay on the book of spells. You don't want to use intuition. He said, I can't even come to you with this strong meat, which is intuition, which is the still small voice. You want to stay on the book of God spells, ghost spell, God spells. You want to stay in a strong delusion. Hey, that's fine, man. You got all the time in the world. Jesus ain't coming. There ain't no rapture coming. Like it says, I understand words, and you start to break words down, and there's no ecstasy coming. There's no rapture coming. You have plenty of time, and if you don't do it right this time, you'll get another time around. Don't worry. There's no dichotomy. You got to be played between heaven or hell. You got all the time to do this another time. If you decide not to take care of it this time, well, you'll get time, because when that white light programs, you're going to go to that thing and say, "Ooh, I want that electrical shock in the brain. I want that ecstasy. I want that 3 or 4 second thrill that my brain is hitting the dome, the force field." And so that's when people are experiencing their climax, I'll say that, when they're experiencing their climax during a ritual of sacred energy exchange, they don't know why they love that feeling so much, but it's a feeling that you can only get if you're willing to give that up during certain times of the sacred secretions and fasting, and you raise the oil up to your pineal gland, and you get to go in a state of singularity, and you're in the spirit, or you've had a conversation to say, man, where did time go to? And what in the world? Where did time go to? I'm looking at the clock. Where did 2 hours go? But I've had more intense discussions or entering into the intercourse with other souls than the soul that I bound my soul to. Because what is communication? People don't break it down, but communication, it says it's intercourse. You're entering into the course, you're telepathically, you're getting on the same frequency, you're understanding, you're standing in. And when you get to that place and you find a place of meditation and you start to realize that you don't need to go to a building every week and sit there for an hour and go into theta state because of the music, and they turn the lights down and and you are able to be anywhere and find peace, or be together, two or three there in the midst of them, as the book says. You won't allow that guilt shame of Hebrews 10:25 and these other verses to guilt shame you to going into a building and thinking that you're going to be damned if you miss a service, and God's going to strike you with lightning and all the guilt shaming.
It's draining. That's the only thing it is. Now you almost have to go as a student to observe, and also not to do it like they were doing communion last week. And it's like they try to, it's voluntary, but at the same time, like, people do it that don't even understand what they're doing. And so any type of exterior ritual, or, is that not the same as materialism?
Oh, yeah. You got to do it. You got to do it because it's fulfilling. You think you're doing your portion and being a consumerism, materialism, material. There's the AL again. But yeah, people don't know what they're partaking in communion. I mean, the tell is in the spell. I mean, you're drinking blood and you're eating flesh. Oh no, that's just spiritual. Well, try to tell that to the people over in other countries that practice Cain and Abel cannibalism. They're cannibals because they're drinking blood and eating flesh. And then when you go into a church and then somehow or another a ritual on an altar, why do you even have an altar? I thought Jesus was the final sacrifice. But nevertheless, when you have everyone in concentration there all together, and you're having communion, and you're going through word spells, and you're using elements, what are you doing? You're having a ritual. You're having all those ions, all your brain waves are also going to be getting on the... You're having basically a big sex orgy through the commune ion. Yeah. And people think they're just going to a building. But yet
it's like when you use a word that you realize as you're using it, that because normally you don't talk about this stuff, and so it just kind of gets brushed under, I guess, or not focused on. But it's just like, how many times you say something out loud where you're like, what a weird word.
Yeah, it's almost like you've been made deaf onto the meanings of it or something. It's kind of one of those coincidences,
Yeah.
Kind of like deaf, kind of like that's why... Oh, yes, you have to define this word, sir. They're telling us. They have been telling us from our youth. You have to define that word. You have to find the true meaning of that word. And it's right there, and once you see the pattern, you're never going to be hoodwinked ever again. Just like I was driving earlier, not now, and I've been sitting here at Sam's Club for the last 2 hours. People are probably wondering what the world I do. Who am I talking to? But budget. You have to budget. If you want to go forward, you're going to have to budge. BUDGEI-IT. You have to budget forward. Or do you budget your finances?
Right, yeah.
I just seen that, and I was just like, So it goes back to the church. It goes like to cannibalism.
Well, and that's got to be like a visualization too, right? Process where you see it, where that energy, that currency is being used mentally, telepathically to manifest that that goal, that growth. That really, it's growth, right? You're going forwards to that goal.
Yeah, your budget.
It's not the money. That's not the concept.
Well, that's
making it happen. Yeah.
There's another word for you, a conception. You know, you say your birth, you upon conception. What's a con? You're being conned into believing that the conception, that's an idea. This whole thing is just like they told us in the Matrix, but it's a whole conception.
Yeah. Well, it's confusing. Keep them confused.
Yeah, they think they're of a sound mind, but they're actually disfused. They're confused and they're disfused. They're not fused together. They think they are, and that's the whole beauty of this DVD virtual reality matrix womb that we're in. You know, it's been right in front of you, and that's why even with Neo, when you watch Neo, and he went and seen the Oracle, you know, and then you had Trinity, you know, quote unquote Trinity, you know, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, but is there also the unholy Trinity, like Isis Ra-El, also known as Israel, Isis Ra-El, but Trinity kissed him at the, you know, when the ship of Zion was going down, and she kissed him, and she said, the Oracle said that I would fall in love with the one. But the anagram of Neo is what? One.
Yeah.
And you start to, but this is all in the mind. None of this is what we perceive physical. And people say, Eric, how do you see this stuff in the words? It started to where I was typing stuff out. I started to type it and write it out, and the spelling check helped tremendously. But now it's to where the stuff is flowing in fluidity, and just as I'm speaking or thinking is electrical process. It's brainwaves. This stuff is literally coming to me in the eternal now from the universe. I love myself now to be able to have these transmissions.
Well, is that why it's so difficult to write down, like to do a presentation? Is that in the works to get some of this in writing?
Yes, you mean for those that are kinetic?
Yeah.
Well, really, the best thing about this here is we have advancements. Actually, we call them advancements in technologies. All they are is just really rediscoveries because they were hidden. But for those, I was at the dentist's house yesterday, and he was sitting there on his phone or his tablet reading a book. It was about 5 o'clock, and I told him, I says, man, I says, I know how you learn. You learn through kinetic and reading. I said, I love knowledge. I said, but if I sat in that chair right there, I said, I would last about 30 seconds and I would be out. I said, because I'm not kinetic. You know, we have a good friend, Jakob. You know, he just goes through books like he's drinking an 8-ounce glass of water. A 400-page book, he'll down in less than 10 hours. You know, and have full comprehension of it. But yeah, we can take these auditories and put them into print and different things like that. You know, so everyone.
Well, I have to experience it. I have to try it in a way. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I can't retain it. You know, unless it's like mystical or conversational. Is the only way that it can come out individually. Like even this is hard for me to do. I don't know who's listening or if it matters, but I mean, we would be having the same conversation if it were just you and me. That's the difference of this.
Yeah, I mean, before finally got on TikTok, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get up my my views. So if you're listening and you can go or not following me yet, go or follow Definition over there. But that's why I'm auditory as well over there. But that's why I'm auditory as well. Color, just as I said that. See, your wish is your abracadabra. Your wish is your demand.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's where I am audit. Your wish is your demand.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's where I am audit. That's the crazy thing. I'm kinetic. I'm hands-on. Very mechanical minded, and I can work on many different things. But when it comes to different ways of learn, I'm auditory, kinetic. I'm all three. I actually all three of it. But that's why I want to be able to go. I'm going to be not. I want to. I'm going to be going live, so I can get my whiteboard. I have a whiteboard. I have everything in place, and the wind is blowing, but it's just not. It's blowing at its right tempo. I'll say that there.
Yeah.
And so
that's the coolest thing too. That energy just came through, and you got, I think, 2 new followers, and there's somebody that's hearing this maybe for the first time, or maybe it just sort of tore the veil.
It's watering, or I mean, I keep on going back to the book of metaphysics there, but there in 1 Corinthians 13, Paul says, I can't come to you with the meat of the word. I have to come to you with milk. He says, for some of you say, I'm of Paul, I'm of Cephas, I'm of this, and he says, who is Paul? He says, who is Paul water, and the other plants I water, and God, the universe, grants the increase, and so. And that's the whole thing, is that everyone's at different levels, and that is why, my good man, we must take our light and let it shine, and be that lighthouse in hell. Be that lighthouse, which actually those aren't lighthouses. I was just watching something on that there. They're not lighthouses. They were actually for the airships. But nevertheless, we have to be that lighthouse, and as insignificant as we think that we are, everyone has a history, and everyone's history should not be a mystery, like a mist. They need to let their light shine. They need to cease and desist from allowing their history to be a mystery.
Hey, that was the backdrop when we started.
Oh yeah.
Did you see that?
I did. That's right. Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I did. Yeah. Yeah,
maybe that's where I got that from. But when I was typing it out, I was gonna, I didn't know what to put up there. You have to put something controversial up there nowadays to even get some type of, negative energy, which brings in other people. But then it just brings everybody fighting.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be, more. What do they call that? Organic, when you can slowly have smaller groups that can actually be heard, or their intuition and their energy that somehow gets caught up in it naturally.
The thing is who's going to argue with any of this stuff, man? But if those that are listening to this stuff here, it's so far. Most people have never even heard this stuff. If they do, what are they going to do? They're going to argue with it? I mean, it's like most of this stuff is mind blowing as it is, So it's like, that, and I'm not going to allow it. I mean, when I was in religion, I became a blind Pharisee. The word "see" is actually at the end of Pharisee, but in of that, I became like a gladiator. I mean, I was a gladiator, with my sword words, and well, I'm sure you still have some of the posts up there on Facebook. But me and you, we tangled. I mean, it was to where our power and effect still has people. Our discussions were so intense Raw, anagram of raw is war. It was raw war. The energy was so strong. There's still people that ask you, hey, you ever see that guy Eric? Or, and it's like, but in of that there, I that's why I don't argue with people now, because I know, because there's pattern recognition. And when people are arguing and people are debating, what they're really doing is they're not allowing that light and truth that's right in front of them. They don't want it to be free because they've gotten used to, and I'm out walking here and I see the art of war. Literally, I was getting ready to say, they're so used to that art of war, divide, conquer, and rule, that the debate, B-A-I-T, that debating is their drug of disassociation and dislocation, of how they love to debate. They love to stay in that place because it's their blanket. It's how they stay, in a prison in their mind, into where they don't become
during
free.
that time was such a, and I wouldn't say they were so much heated, because at that time I think I was just delving into like Eckhart Tolle or something like that. So I was really trying to navigate my path as well. I didn't have any answers, that's for sure.
No, and you were, like a lot of people, using maybe more of the atheist, kind of things. It wasn't so much the atheist, and that's really not even, people really aren't any atheists. My summation of what atheism is, that they know there's more truth to what that book is saying, of the Bible is saying, but they do know for certainly what the church is saying is wrong, but they're still on a search for the truth, because they know the truth of what that book is saying is not. They know what they're searching for Gnosticism.
Yeah, I don't know what the terminology would have been. I would have said I loved Christopher Hitchens. He was phenomenal. Like he was very instrumental in like just his quick-wittedness and just thinking a different way. But at the time, I would say it was more. I needed a break. I couldn't figure out religion. I couldn't figure out. People were asking me to become a pastor, and I couldn't do it. So I was in this area of like, what am I? I was raised, Pentecostal, and then all of a sudden I'm, having to navigate. Where do I go now? I can't be one or the other.
Right, because that goes back to that whole false dichotomy. Because intuition, your subconscious was telling you that there's more truth, but yet all throughout my journey, and how I was saying earlier, and what I was in, and there's no one that will ever. I mean, I enjoy a good challenge, but I have gone through and back engineered the quantum mechanics of what narcissism would be, or debating, or witchcraft, call it what you may. But I know now pretty much every angle, but I actually tap into the frequency of the discussion, and I know when someone's talking to me or talking at me, talking down to me, encouraging me. So, all that, I learned all of that, but you have people that you were looking at and I was looking at, and the things that we were dealing with, and we knew that there was more, but everything that we've ever gone through was for honing and refining even the things that are evil. And that's what people have to understand. They have to understand the paradox and be able to see both sides of the coin at the same time, that those things that we've been taught are evil, or God did that, or Satan did that. All those things that we've been taught, why can't it just be? All those things, they work in conjunction together for you to come to your fullest, for you to break through those walls that we learned to set up, so we can learn to love ourselves again. And in doing that, that's what it goes back to what I was, the quest. You're on a quest, Ion, and you're going. And so everything that we've ever experienced was to bring us to the eternal now.
Why is there this huge, pull for people to prove or justify their views? When really what you're expressing is, the more you let go, the more that you just become into the flow. And it just seems so ironic that there's this huge fight and pull, You know, like there's no fight and pull in Gnosticism, and I think that's what Justin Sledge was saying. Like where he almost seemed concerned, almost like the chess game ran out.
Yeah, no, it's to where, yeah, because it's the programming, it's the TV, it's the news, it's the constant debate, the constant art of war to have you always thinking that you got to be busy, you got to be thinking about, you got to be watching something, you got to be doing something, you know, you got to have the light on, you know, if you can't sit in the darkness without doing something to disassociate, and for you looking at yourself in the darkness of your mind to come to the light, it goes back to that whole drug. Everyone finds a drug, and they know that there's truth, but they need, and that is why it goes back to what I said about 15 minutes ago. Every individual must take their light and take their experience, take their story, however they get it out. It could be singing, it could be writing, it could be through rap, it could be through painting. Whatever you're doing, we are inspired. The word spirit is in there. What is spirit? It's wind-driven energy. Our energy will resonate with someone else's frequency. And even if it's only one person, one soul.
Well, that's the thing too. It becomes contagious then. Like even if you're just going for a walk, how many times do you see somebody exercising, and you're like, oh, I should be doing that. I should, do something nice. Or you see somebody pick up trash. It can be very contagious. One lady pulled over a car, almost caused an accident because she saw me and some people picking up trash, and she just wanted to say thank you. It's just like, well, that's something she's probably thought about doing in that area over and over. Like maybe her just thinking about it there's no reason why we were in that area.
Right. Yeah. No, it's and that's the whole thing, is that it's like the old matchbook thing, you know. You light one match in the matchbook, next thing you know, but it just took that one person to concentrate and say, you know what? I'm going to use my energy, and I'm going to use my power, and I'm going to use that, and I'm going to use it for the good. And that's that whole thing, is that the universe doesn't know whether or not power is being used for good or evil. If you conjure it up, if you manifest it, and you allow that power to go through, it's going to activate, and it's going to be used for what all the intent, whether good or evil. It's going to be used nevertheless.
Yeah.
And that's why this platform is so powerful, and trying to get to using it is one thing, but that's why, my dad, he's 78, and he's, he's been working out since he was 12 years old. But I mean, back in the 80s, he had a shirt, I've seen it, he says, no pain, no gain. I mean, he's always worked out. And you know him, you've met him, but that's the whole thing, just like with birthing, when you bring forth that child, there's all that pain, but as soon as you hold that baby, it's like everything just goes away. Like you forget about everything that just happened.
Yeah.
And so but that's why those go through it, Yeah, I've seen a quote, a thought, it said, the things which you have gone through and the mountains that you have climbed, that is where your passion is. That is where your destiny is. That is what your direction is, to help others and let them know that they can get through it, that they can do it, and that you're no better than they are, and you have the same light inside of you, inside of them, that you have in you. And it took someone else that did a little watering, did a little pruning, to give you permission. They gave me permission, because they gave themselves permission. And it goes back to that whole domino effect. It goes back to the energy being transferred, because you allowed yourself to love yourself, and you gave yourself permission through different processes and different mediums of whatever modality that resonated with you. And, I mean, we've been talking about doing this for I don't know how long, and I finally got on the horn.
It had to be over a year at least, because
yeah.
it wasn't this last July, but it was the year before. But Since then I've lost about 45 pounds, and I haven't really done anything. I walked. I walked when I was heavy though, so I was always active. So I knew I was healthy, but for some reason my body was just holding on to 45 pounds of fat for some reason.
Yeah, and you think about that. I mean, I think we covered that area where we're at. But I mean, you think about that, like, what is fat? Is it really fat, or is it energetic energy? We sell there's fat cells, but what cells, cellulars, fat cells? That's energy. A cell is energy. So how much of that negative energy from potentially generations that you've been carrying, and now it's magically dissipating, just like it was never there in the first place. It was all literally in the mind.
Yeah.
And you weren't trying. The art of Wu Wei, Alan Watts. He was a big, and gotta give credit due where credit. Mr. We'll just call him Joe D. Mr. Joe D. was the catalyst. About 7 years ago, he started posting Alan Watts on Facebook, and I called him a heretic, and he was crazy, and this and that. But Joe D. was the catalyst that started getting me listening to Alan Watts. But Alan Watts has a short. It's a long. It can be longer, but people have broken it up. But it's Wu Wei, the art of not forcing.
Yeah.
Because that's just the more you try to force something, the more that natural resistance in all of us that we push back.
Well, I think Neville Goddard is good for that too, and Florence Shin, right? Like just having a thought and letting that thought form. It might take some time, and I think that's the problem, where people are doing it for the wrong reasons instead of trying to figure out who they are.
Right. Yeah. No. It's for certain. It is, and that's the whole thing. The weight is like, wait a second. Where did that weight go? You see, it's like it went to where it came from, which was nowhere, but actually it's now here. See, that goes back to that whole mentality. Put a hyphen between N and W and H, and you're actually now here. When everyone just is wandering around the wilderness with this extra 40 pounds, and when you start to realize what you realize that you're actually now here. And so that's where that energy, you don't even call it weight, but that energy, that negative energy, literally has just dissipated back into the universe from where it came from. Oh, and of course, you've changed your mentality, which has changed as within, so without. You've changed your lifestyle. You've realized you don't even really need to eat. That's a whole thing. You can actually live on sun and air, and so you've gone through those processes. So it's been a matter of walking, but really the mentality and letting go of things, and allowing you love yourself, so you can let those truths that you've always known, let them flow through you.
Yeah. Well, that's good stuff, man. Well, good talk here. I gotta mow the lawn, I guess. That's what I gotta do on this fall day. Pick up these leaves. You can't let these leaves lay around. Yeah, for certain. Yeah, well, hopefully this will save, and people can go back, and I can even go back and listen to it myself. Yeah. So, all right, man. All right. Well, we'll do this again. All right, sounds good. All right, we'll have to get some questions out there, and maybe we can do some Q&A next time. Make sure there. It looks like there was a solid 5 that hung out here. So you guys like and follow, and we'll try to do this more. If you can share this and then go through definitions stuff, it's really interesting, and you can ask questions there too. So, got a question in the comments. Yep. All right. Thank you. What's that, Tony? They're probably kicking you out of Sam's Club now, huh?
Yeah, thankfully they're not. Well, it's not like Costco. I mean, I won't even go there. I made a video about that in Costco scanning. I walked out here. I'm over here in Pittsfield, and I walk right in, and they're not even asking for a card. It's like, But yeah, no, I was just sitting here. I had to go get some stuff, so I was just walking around in here. But yeah, no, yeah. I mean, and that's fine. And I don't care, if there's one, or if there's two, or if there's three, or if it's just me and you, and in the universe, this message will get out to someone, and it'll get out to them right at the right time,
Yeah.
Because there's never nothing to be anxious about. There's only right now. So.
Yeah. Well, cool, cool, man. Yeah, we're getting a couple comments, which is interesting. So it's that's a good talk. It always is. That's the funny thing, is it would be the same exact conversation if we weren't doing this online. So that's what's so cool about this, I think.
Oh yeah. I mean, obviously you could upload it, but it's better. People. You think about it. This is nothing more than giving the average. I'll say the average man. I don't like to degrade ourselves, but I'll just say that for reference, because before, to be able to do something like this for people to tune in live, what did you have to do? You had to be part of WJR. You had to have a radio station. And then it started going out to where you could have the HIM operator. They were doing that, and so even in Alan Watts, he did another thing. Technology is just advancing, and to where we're just getting back to where we're all telepathically able to communicate in the mind, but we're using the devices. So. That's all it is someone just listening to a radio.
That's also the other unique thing, is that the fact that we're just doing this, it in a way it charges somebody else who is probably much better at it than we are, but yet it just opens up collectively more opportunities. And so it's just about the fact of doing it, of visualizing it and seeing it. It might not even be our vision or dream that's accomplished. Yeah, it might be far more effective.
And the thing is that was another thing I was taught, is to be a progressionist and not a perfectionist. Now, see, I am a perfectionist. Details make for precision and perfection. But the thing is that I'm also the best at making excuses, and I'm also the best to figure out why someone is making excuses. and so I finally got off the breast, got off the milk, and gave myself permission. And you know what? I don't care if this is perfect or not. Because the thing is that I can sit there. I was trained by the best of the best marketers and trainers in this world that train people like Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins goes to this individual. I mean, and the universe allowed me to go there.
Well, and my awakening started at a rave I wasn't even supposed to be at.
Yeah, I remember that. And even your son was like, "Dad, what's going on? You shouldn't be doing that stuff."
Yeah.
The energy was flowing, but the thing is that, you know what? Who cares if it's? I mean, and I sat there, and I sat there over the years looking on Facebook and looking on YouTube, and I said, "Look at those people. They don't know what in the world they're talking about, what they're doing, but yet people are masses are following them." So it can't be their genetics. It can't be it has to be that energy. It has to be that light that's inside of them, that they are just allowing the universe just to flow through them at 440 and 440 volts. And who cares if you're doing it right or doing it wrong? Yeah, the only reason why someone thinks they're right or wrong is because they were raised in that false dichotomy that you have to do everything just perfect, and you have to do this and you have to do that in order for people to like you and to be accepted. Hey man, I love myself. I love myself now, and most people can't say that. And so when you love yourself, what is there to fear? What is there to fear? Someone's going to say something and get in and do something. Oh, you did this wrong and this wrong. Well, when someone starts nitpicking on you, you know that they're insecure, and so your light inside of you is causing them to act like a child and say those things. So the less that people say around me, or the less they type around me, the better off they are, because the more they say, the more that they're revealing to me their background and why they're acting the way they are. So, but yeah, no, it's no, we give our light, man. That's the whole thing. We're letting our light shine, and we're being salty, and knowing that why search without? Those sneaky Pharisees came around, in Luke 17:21, and Bill Donohue's big about this verse. You know, and he says, and the Pharisees came tempting him, asking him when the kingdom of God should come. And the great mystic Jesus said, the kingdom of God comes without observation, for the kingdom of God is within you. And when you allow that kingdom inside of you, that light, that palace of lights and gems and diamonds and amethyst, to allow those electromagnetic pulses of frequencies to flow through you. Can't describe it. I can't describe it. I can take you to the waters, but you got to drink.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's we'll do this again, and you know, and like I said, and I've spent hours, and I mean, with you, I mean, you have something from 5 years ago, what was 2015 when I talked with you the first time, and you have a whole page of notes that you took. I mean, that was like our first 2016, 17, and then I called you in 2020. We talked for a little bit, and then last year I was thinking about you. I was down in your old neighborhood down there in the county down there where you're at there, and I was like, hey, you remember this place here? And you're like, I was just getting ready to contact you, and because you're the only one that I know that is crazy enough to believe what I just experienced.
Well, that was something else on its own, because we went so long without talking, because the last time we did talk, I would say it just sort of fizzled out. I think we just wore each other down.
Yeah, it was that,
but we didn't give up. We didn't give up, right?
No, and that's the whole thing, is that's just with my name and my family. There's one direction, and if you have to, you get the extra battery and the magnetic charge, and you put it on your phone, and you keep on going, and that's the difference. The question is, and I just asked yesterday, what's the difference between a failure and failing? You ever thought about that? What's the difference between failing and failure?
It's just the giving up, the quitting.
Yeah, the fail. When you fail, how do you learn? That's how I've learned, in knowing, not in failing, but in changing that mentality and changing. There's a better way to say it. There's a better way to do it. There's a better way to perform it.
Well, the whole defining failure too. It's when we started to put the constricts on the result, right? Where if we wrecked our bike, or we fell off something, we'd laugh it off. There was no sense of injury when we were little and we were living free.
Like a scientist, you're tearing things apart, and it's till your parents, who their parents rent their singularity mind, and that just came to me. Their parents rent the mind in two, and you went to this place of duality, the age of accountability, whatever you might want to call it. But then that's where you thought, oh no, you hurt yourself. Are you okay? That's an embedded command. You hurt yourself. Are you okay? Yeah. Instead of saying you are okay.
Yeah.
See how in that programming, that pro-spelling completely will destruct or instruct your life on how to live how to play the game of life, playing the game of life, and how to succeed. And it literally goes around back to what I said, 1 Corinthians 15:33. Be not deceived, evil communications corrupt good manners. But if you're around positive communications and an altruist, and and the glass is not even half full, the glass is overflowing. When you're there and you're in the gnosis and you're around that, there, darkness won't even be around it. Those that are walking in it, they won't be able to be around that, and you will start.
Just even your everyday life, like just the things that start to open up for you, that like. I mean, if you recorded it, it wouldn't make sense, but there's just been times like where traffic, when you're in the right mindset, where the traffic just opens up and it just starts flowing. And, you could be, if you're sitting there worried about it and angry about your situation, or that you're late or whatever, you're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, like what happened to me today when my heart was overcharged.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, I'm still navigating this thing, man. I haven't arrived, and that's so when those things do happen, as I just said, and I have no problem with admitting it.
Well, you have to do it in Detroit, though. I have to do it in North Dakota. There's a huge difference.
Right, but it was a multiplicity of dealing with self-imposed people who keep on running from the mirror, and just a multiplicity of things going on. So it wasn't just the traffic, but correct. It's and I've learned to navigate around, and I just imagine myself as a George Jetson or in Star Wars, and I'm flying around in the skies, and for the most part, I look down the road and make sure I'm not getting being part of the traffic that's being impeded, it's literally
that's another thing of like separation. That's like putting shoes on. You're putting shoes on, and it's disconnecting you from the earth. And then, we're never going to treat people the way we treat them when we're driving. That's just not. It's not in our nature. And even when we get in an accident, the first thing we say, "Are you okay?" Even though your insurance company will tell you that you shouldn't say that. But we care for each other, and the bigger, what's the next thing? At least everybody is okay.
Right. Yeah. But this everything, and that's the whole thing. Like everything carries over. I've told those younger that are around me. I said, "You guys, listen. This is when they were playing their sports. I says, this is the game of life. This is the court of life. This is the field of life. This is the basketball court. This is the diamond of life. How you practice is how you play, and how you play is just like practice. People say perfect or practice makes perfect. Well, does it? What happens if you just so happen to practice the wrong way? How are you going to perform? You're going to perform how you practice, so it's perfect practice. But then even what does that even mean? What does perfect mean? Does perfect mean without error? No. Perfect means mature. And what does mature mean? It means that you've grown up and you've accepted your failures. You've accepted, you know what? There's a better way to do that. There's a better way to think that. And you start to grow up, and you look at yourself, and you stop running away, and you don't play in that false dichotomy of separation and, if I do this, people are going to think of me or bad. And I'm not saying to be prideful and arrogant and rebellious. I'm just saying you become mature and you put away those childish ways. 1 Corinthians, it goes back to, once again, the man in the mirror. You can't get away from looking at that. The further you try to get away from looking at that glass, that is the love of the universe, or put God in there if that's, that is the love of the universe, that it will constantly remind you, saying, friend, the further you run, the further, the closer you are to me, because I'm there and I love you and I want you to be free, and I don't want you to repeat this cycle again. I don't want you to be, the all commercial. How much does all get out? How much all does all detergent? It gets out all. I don't want you to be on the wash, rinse, repeat cycle. I want you to get this. I want you. This is the last load, buddy. You're getting. This is becoming too much. Watching you walk around in the wilderness for 40 years when it was only a 10-day trip, but you're drawing this thing out to 40 years.
Yes.
Or whatever the case may be. And you use the analogies. Analogies are just. But they're just things.
It's hidden in I think, and when you say 40, they go over the hill. The mindset, your 40th birthday party. Like there's so much in 40. Well, it takes about that much time just to get to the point of where you're ready to lose your mind anyway, because you've cycled so much that what else do you have to do? You either you're in for the long haul and you're going to buy into what society tells you have to do, or you have to make a decision at that point because you start doing the math and you only have a certain number of years left. But for me, I've seen 80-year-old people that are living with more energy than people that are fresh out of college, worried about carrying around that debt or whatever it is. and just becoming a victim that way. And then you buy into that. I'm never going to get rid of this debt. Well, then you never are. And I was like, right, I got in the mindset that I'm going to get rid of it at ASAP. And when you get rid of it ASAP, you're willing to do whatever it takes, and you learn that you don't have to eat that much.
Right. Because now you wake up with passion, PASSION. You wake up with passion, and you're alive now with a purpose, and you have purpose, and now you want to charge. You want to give that arc, that charge to others, because you've finally realized. And to piggyback on what you were saying about 40, and you said you're losing your mind, but not that you've ever done this or anyone listening to this, but what was the big thing back in the 80s and 90s? You got to get your what? You got to get your 40. They made all those songs, then you got to get your 40 and what? And then you really lose your mind. You're getting your 40, sipping on your 40 ounce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's always that thing. And so now when you have your purpose and your passion, and you want to pass on those ions and those charge of your mind, and you pass them on to others, it's like, my family says, Dad, they says, do you sleep? They says, you're up a lot of times, many times before we go to sleep, and then you're up when we get up. It's like, I was like, you guys, I can't explain this. I don't need it. I said, and I haven't been able to really lose weight in life for the last 5-6 years. I mean, I know there's an environment and a lot of challenged people, but I've also been using some different compounds and compositions to take those parasites and get those low frequency parasites out, to where now it's like the freedom. I mean, it's like I'll go to sleep at 9 o'clock and then wake up at 2 or 3, and I can't, and I've slept enough. And that's a whole nother study if someone wants to do that. It's been proven.
I feel like I've been hibernating for the last 10 years, but I had to get off that Adderall and get off the pharmaceutical side of it, and I had to self-diagnose myself and look and see what I was eating, what I was eating for, and why. And now I look back at photos just 6 months ago, and it's just like you have to see it first, though, and that's the trick, because you can do the right thing for a week, which seems to be horribly long for us because we're so undisciplined. But if we we figure out and we do it for the right purpose spiritually, it just seems to fall into place, and then you start to see what you envision.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's literally because you're in that place of contemplation, and you're allowing the pruning process to take place, and the things that we thought or we believed that were longer, you're realizing that they were always now here. Even when you write the word where, people say, well, where are you? And well, I'm right here, because the word here isn't where, and you start to just see these things, and you literally start to just be present, like in that documentary that you'll watch one day, Peaceful Warrior. But he takes them and, he throws them off this bridge, and it's all part of the training. And he's like, and it was just a short little bridge at the campus there at Berkeley. And, he threw him into the water. And of course, obviously it was all acted, and he knew he was being thrown over. But he's like, Dan, he's like, you even had a word for it when you meet. You're like, ah, because he told him, he says, well, you're not paying attention. He says, there's nothing going on. He says, there's always something going on, Dan, his mentor. And then he takes him and he puts them into his mind and shows him all these nuances, the butterfly and the guy reading the book and the people that are kissing and all these, and then he brings them back. And he's like, Dan, you got to learn. He says, you got to take the trash out. He says, you got to take the trash out in your past, which is never there. He says, because the past will have your now. He says, and you got to take the trash out from the future, which is never going to come. He says, oh, am I going to get this grade? Am I going to be able to hook up with this girl? Am I going to make my landing? Because he was a gymnast. He says, now the future has your present.
And he says, when you learn to be present here, now, and be this moment, he says, you will be able to amazed at what your mind and body can do.
Well, why is the K silent in no?
Yes, or knee,
Yeah.
or pneuma, or
And what is it like? Just following some of the numerology stuff, like the K. Like if you break it up, it's just made of 3 lines. You know, it's like it's just interesting to look at it that way too. That's about the only thing that we can know is now.
Yeah, because even now is in no, if you know what I mean. And when you start to know what I mean, you'll start to have start to own, because the anagram of one is own and now. And that's this is just simple. I mean, and I'm just you know, I didn't drop out, but I mean, I graduated with my education, you know, of a 1.6 GPA, you know, from the school I did, and it's like, you know, it's one of those things to where, well, who cares? I knew the whole system was a scam. You know, I couldn't tell you how it was a scam, and it took me 32 years to finally realize it. You know, but once you do, you know, and that's what I'm saying. You give yourself permission, you give others permission, and then I started talking to you about the words about, hey, you ever notice this? And started talking with the other gents. And next thing you know, we're all working together and we're figuring this thing out like the A team. And it's like, you know, and, you know, thinking about, okay, who's Hannibal, who's BA, and, you know, who's Face, and, you know, who's Crazy Murdoch, you know, and it's like, and then what do we do? Well, okay, this person is having problems. We're going to go to this town, and, you know, this person is having that. We're going to go in here and we're going to, you know, think of a way to get this and that. And, you know, it's,
well, it's just it's such a I guess a shift in how our old approach was, of where you had to convince somebody that they had to do something, right? Where really it's almost like the less you do, the more this sort of just kicks in. If you want to like speed roll it, you would be almost better off like doing no research and just plugging in and taking your shoes off, and I think doing some sun gazing at the right time, and something happens. Because I mean, I never, you know, was so emotional as when I first put that together and pieced it together, and I'm like, what I didn't even know what it was called. And you know, I was just intentionally going out more and more barefoot and leaving the socks and shoes off.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You were just, because you were allowing intuition to guide you back to the fore rest, so you could have rest. Because it's I tell people, your soul, you were getting back in touch and grounding and connecting with your soul. I didn't even mention until now of all the electrical terms and inferences in that old King James so-called archaic English. I mean, the grounded in the pillar of the truth. You just charged him with his words. Conduit. I mean, and so you allowed your souls, because the souls of shoes before Converse, petroleum-based, a very large family that had control of the oil, the soil, the word oil is in the soil and where the snakes are. But before Converse, rubbers back in the 60s, was very pivotal for these alchemists. But they were made out of leather. And then you had cotton socks. And then people were on the grass, and they were on the concrete, and they were outside more, and they were walking more, and they were riding their bicycles, just like a menstrual cycle is an electrical cycle. And people were grounded in earth. But ever since then, more and more, then you get astroturf, then you're inside watching TV more, or you're on the internet. And so it went from bad to worse. Now you're getting Wi-Fi in your house, And it's like, then these kids are in school all day and you're being blasted with superpower, high power Wi-Fi, and everyone is just in their digital dementia. And who knows if 5G is really bad? Who knows if all this stuff is bad? Maybe it's all placebo. You know, I mean, I've even seen stuff to where they had radium in their advertisements, in their toothpaste, and different things like that back in the 1800s, 1900s.
Well,
late 1800s.
it's got to be somewhat proof is in the pudding, because it's not making people or myself more productive. Even when I used to have to go to the library and look stuff up, I retained that information through the process of, remember you had to get the catalog out, you had to...
Yep.
The Dewey Decimal System, we had to know that. We had to get like 6 or 7 books just to even begin formulating an idea about what we were thinking about. And so now you just look it up and you just trust whatever's said, and that's ridiculous, because that's just causing a bunch of people that are knowledgeable are retaining information, but they can't even like put it into practice or practically apply it.
Yeah, that's because it's disinformation. See, that's why you have inform. See that you have to break the word down. You have informed, but you can also be disinformed. But if you tell a lie often enough and convincing enough, with enough repetition and frequency, that lie becomes the truth, and you can no longer discern what the electrical mind meant of what is truth, and what is false. But even then, that's a false dichotomy. So you have to learn to trust intuition. And 1 John 4:1 there in the book of metaphysics, it says, try the spirits of men. Try the frequency. Like right now, this is all frequency. This is all telepathic. And we have to try to use grammatical words in whatever language one wants to use to try to describe the invisible, the omnipresent, the electrical. See, I can't even do it without trying to use deaf phonetians. That's where all of our letters come from, because the 1 has 1 angle, 2 has 2 angles, 3, and so on. You know, and that's what I'm saying. Everything is energy. Everything is energy. An anagram of energy is green energy, green earth. Everyone wants to be green, but yet so many people. That's why disinformation is the best information for confusion. Because it says there that God is not God, and whatever, we can even talk. What is God? God is light. He's light. That's frequency. But God, we'll just take it at its premise. God is not the authority, the author of confusion. You know, and so and that's the whole thing with these devices, that we have these Ouija boards, we have these crystal balls, also known as cell phones, computers. Does technology use you as a tool, or are you using technology as the tool? And unto what purpose are you using it?
Yeah. Well, just the whole epidemic of, I can't say the word, but the free websites that the OnlyFans type things that are out there that are free, you know, how many people are caught up in that? And then they get caught up in the debate of whether they change the subject, and they get caught up in something about the argument. Is it right? Well, it's your right to do that. And is there any harm in it? Well, the harm in it is that it's keeping you from becoming, something so much more it's the polar opposite of like a kundalini or sacred secretion or something like that. Just look at the realms, like the two polarities in that alone.
Yeah. It's that, because it's all energy. It's all, yeah. You become a master at debating. If checkmate. The tell is in the spell intuitively, and it's just another drug to keep you on so that way you never, and it's free. I think I told you earlier before, just talking about, having there's other platforms where you can just go on live as soon as you open the account, or at least you get 15 minutes. I don't know, they may have raised it. I mean, I don't know, one of them you can go live for up to 8 hours, but it's like, if it doesn't cost you anything. I was telling someone back in 2020 before that, there's a documentary that came out where they're telling you how they're literally controlling you. It was called Social Dilemma. I've only watched bits and pieces of it, but I was telling this couple about things going on in the world, this and that, and they're like, "Oh, you've seen that documentary?" I said, "What documentary?" They said, "Oh, Social Dilemma." I said, "No. Sorry, friend." I said, "I don't allow my mind to go into theta state like that." I said, "I'm just very aware. I resonate on a very high frequency, and I'm just very aware of things that are going on." They're like, "Are you sure you haven't seen it? Because like everything you're telling us is like," I says, "Yeah." I says, I may have been born, but I wasn't born last night. I said, "I've been on this journey." And the thing is that they have a slogan that says, "If it doesn't cost you anything, you are the produce. You are the product." And they're going to pick you like produce. And they're going to pick your brain and they're going to regulate you. And then you are going to, and even those that are masters at getting subscribers or getting followers, you know what? You know what the sad thing about these people, that they're trying to use their power, and they're using their power, and they are magnetically charged to draw people in. They're not even masters of their own hearts, because anyone that uses their time and their energy to figure out how that they can get subscribers and followers to follow them instead of them following their own intuition, they haven't gone through their own work yet, and they're not even a master of their own heart, and they're of the seed. Though they think they're doing a great thing, they're having all these followers. If you look at all the great mystics, they did everything they can to try to discourage people from following them, because even Alan Watts says that if you believe that you think that you need a psychologist, and there's a bridge, there's a time and season for everything. He says you actually need to have your brain examined. But that goes back to that whole thing of programming, of you thinking you have to go to your counselor, you have to go to your principal, you have to go to your priest, you have to go to your pastor, you have to go here, you got to go to God. When all you got to do is you go to yourself, you got to go look at yourself in the mirror. And so, and there's nothing wrong. And so that's the whole thing. That's the paradox. You got to look at the paradox, and you got to see these things for what they are, and how you can truly be free. And once you start to tell the spell, and someone says hello to you, I always like someone says hello to me, I said, "Oh, hell." They're like, "What are you saying?" I'm like, well, the anagram of hello is "oh, hell." And that goes back to that whole thing again. Good God morning, good morning, or moon day. It's like people are so used, instead of saying greetings like Guten Tag is like good day, and so you're saying good day instead of saying good after, good day, good morning, or no, instead of saying good day, these things, you have people now just saying hello, hello, hi. It's so informal, it's so impersonable, and it's like, and this is because why? It's the conditioning. Just like you condition your hair, you condition, and that's the programming. You're allowing yourself to be, metaphysically, you listen to someone and you're allowing yourself to get massaged. And the more that you're around someone, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the more comfortable you are. And this is how people get sucked into cults, into cultures. This is how people get sucked into the whole art of war of Sun Tzu, divide and conquer and rule the mind. Because when you start to really understand what communication is, and when you're entering into the course of each other telepathically, you find out that there really is no male and female. You find out that everyone is on the same frequency, just resonating at different frequencies, So But on that note, this has been good. My body is vibrating right now.
Yeah, it's definitely good stuff. We'll get into it a little later, maybe. We'll have to do this maybe a couple times. This didn't produce like a large crowd, but there seems to be a consistent number of people that are more interested, and it's good that we can maybe later bring in more people and get some questions and answers. I got to get a better backdrop and something that might attract a few more, but overall, it was a good conversation for sure. Conversation or communication. It was good.
Yes. You have meta catnip there. They said it says I am here too, but I don't even know if they even realize what they said. I am that I am. And then they said, have you ever thought about starting a community? I believe it's community or school, but little do they know anything about. When I see school, SKOOL, who did I think of? Skoog.
Yeah.
And we could even go there. How all that worked out, and the part that it played in your life majorly, but even in my life and the connection we have there.
Well, that might even be part of the reason why I hold off on watching things like The Peaceful Warrior, because of the way that it becomes almost symbolic of like something before you've seen it, or you just know how it's going to play out, and that might mean I have to address some things. Things that I don't want to necessarily address right now for whatever reason, even though I do, and I'm not afraid of it, but there's still something in you where it's like, answering the door or going to an event that you're excited to go to, like why you have these, you drag your feet, or you have a tendency to back out or hide.
Right. Yeah. You're deferring. I mean, even there in the book of metaphysics in Acts, I believe it's 7, but it's even that Acts and script. But when Paul, where that Ephraim comes from, getting kicked off your high horse, that was Paul, who was Saul at the time, but he was on his road to Damascus. You've seen that there. I have to give credit to where credit is due, but you've seen Damascus because he was finally taking off that mask that he had been running. But it goes in line because it said, Saul, Saul, why kick us against the pricks? Why do you keep on playing soccer there and moving the goalpost and mental gymnastics and all the other devices? Because he knew his calling is just like Moses. Moses was hanging out in the wilderness of sin, in emotions where the Akkadian moon got. So, yeah. So, like I said, I know how to defer, but I'm deferring less and less with those things. And that's why I've gotten to where I'm at, is because I kept on going forward. And then, I allowed myself to hear other people that I would have called a heretic, or listening to Alan Watts or the Florence Shin, or or the Goddard, Neville Goddard, or different people outside of the box and the parameter of Christianity, and even emotion. Well,
I heard a quote one time, I don't know who said it, but just that when you are looking outside or other than yourself, or there's no enlightened people, there's enlightened moments, and that if it's and you see it, people are collecting money, and it's one of the greatest times. Like, all the information is getting out there, but it's almost like an overflow of information. And I think the main thing are going to be people that refuse to accept gifts. Although I think that that sometimes that's part of it. You can't help somebody that wants to share that energy. I've gotten caught up in that too, but I don't want anything monetary. But I'll sit and I'll talk to somebody for 6 hours for free. And that's sort of how I get my, my fill as well. Because I'm not talking. Yeah.
Freely you receive, freely you give. And that's the whole thing. If you look at the out there, the LDS, you know, and their whole school motto is service. You look at it, it says that the Son, S-O-N, but the Son of Man came not to serve or to be served, but to serve. I mean, I was trained by the best of, I'm telling you, the best of the best that has trained and dined with the Trump, and with other high officials that run this world. Like I said, I was trained by the best of the best, and that's why I can see what I can see. I wasn't taught to see these things directly, but indirectly being taught the way I did, the way I learn and process things. I was trained never to give away any information for free. Never, not one thing. That is very unwise to do that. That you can make more money and currency and energy than your mind, and I just can't do that. I just can't do it. You know?
Yeah.
It's just
well, for me, that's like you can just see how it starts to change the persona, how it can influence a motive. You know, it can create a motive, even like it can trigger the ego, because if it is just one, and if there were something to come in that manner, it would be more or less like how do you reseed that, or how do you get rid of it as fast as possible, because that, you know, should be a principle of the whole idea of just letting things go, and more is going to come anyway.
right. Yeah. It's and that's the whole thing. You know, it's like, you know, there's the principles that are in that book. You know, and it's like the more, and I've heard the testimonies, testing your money, testing your currency. I just seen that. Testimonies, you know, of the more that someone gives away, the more that pressed down. What is that? Pressed down, shaking, and running over.
Yeah, pressed down, shaking together, running over. Yeah.
Yeah, to where the oil, you can't even. It's like they're an Elijah. Elijah was a great magician. He had his staff as well. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with a magician. You know, it's like, what are you doing with that power? We've already discussed that, and we can discuss it further. But you know, we see the picture, the types and the shadows over there, where that woman, he was testing that woman. You know, she said, all I have is the last meal for me and my son, and then we're both going to die, you know? And it's like, you know, and it was like, you know, and because of her faith, even that woman who made herself a female dog over there in the New Testament, because she said, my daughter is sick and I need you to come and heal it. And her son was sick, you know, there in 1 Kings, I think that is. And that woman there in Matthew, she says, and Jesus, the great mystic, said to her, says, I came not for but for the lost sheep of Israel. And what did she say? She rebutted, she challenged, and that's what they want. That's what a universe wants. The universe wants to know the sincerity of your heart. And she says, even the dogs eat of the crumbs of the table. Was saying, hey, I know that you came for that, but guess what? I have enough faith, more faith than what those religious people that you came for. I have more faith to know that your power is still the same yesterday, today, and forever than those people there. And what did it do? Man, he says, you just blew my, he says, I haven't found all the faith of Israel. I was dogging on, literally, pun intended, I was dogging on you, and you did that. And then the same thing, and her daughter was made whole, and she let this woman's name be known throughout generations. And then the same thing with Elijah. With that cup overflowed, those pots, he says, go and get all the pots you got. And the pots oil just kept on appearing. And she kept on making bread. And she was like the only place in town, you know, that was able to make bread. And her pots just kept on filling up supernaturally with that oil, that just never stopped. And that oil is flowing in you. The oil of gladness is now flowing in you each month. That it was jammed up for many years, and now it's like that oil is flowing, and the oil is flowing in me, and it's like we have to let the stuff out, but not let it run on the ground, but pour it into others.
Well, isn't that where the Christos, the Christ, walks on water? Is that if you poured oil and water together, the oil walks on the water. So that's how it's raised.
Mm-hmm.
When it's preserved and saved and given intention. So you actually have to. There is something you have to do. Is it more awareness or is it more practice?
Well, I'll say this. I'll say this to show you. They can tell us we're males, and then you have females, and the word males and females, and you get the femur and the males, and they say this is Earth, and that's the sun, and that's the cloud. Who knows what any of this stuff is? And they can tell you, okay, this is the system. If you follow, step A, step B, step C, and then what ends up happening because of that education and that indoctrination, you end up thinking, okay, I have to follow every step, I have to do this, and if I don't follow all these steps, see, I've been a part of cults. I've been scammed a few times in my life, believing that you got to follow. I was more worried about following every step than like you said, the intent, as within, so without. So I have found that those sacred secretion and there's these protocols that you have to follow, that I was resonating walking on water, or The Greatest American Hero. You guys got to go listen to that. If anyone is out there listening, go and listen to that show. I remember The Greatest American Hero. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought it would be so real. Flying away on a wing on a prayer. Who could it be? Believe it or not, it's just me. The song says it. He says, I was under a spell. He says, I've been looking everywhere. He says, but believe it or not, it's been me all along. I know I've had sacred secretions, the oil flowing upward, and I did everything you're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
So it's like when you are dialed in and you're tuned in, the universe will see, the uni, the one verse, will see that these protocols and that these operation ions, the ions in your body, will align if the intent of your heart is to do right in your heart drive.
Yeah.
I mean, and that could be, but everyone is different. Some people might have to follow. It's the discipline, the art of discipling, the art of disciplining that mind. But once you break free and you break free from all these regulations and all these things, you're going to realize, and you're going to be like, wow, it was like, I only set those limitations because I allowed others to set those boxes, and it's like, and now it's like, I'm free. I'm walking on air. I mean, it's a short song, but it's like walking on water. The sun walks on water. Frequency travels faster across water.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
But
yeah. I mean, just the experiences I have had, and what I learned, it was more of like getting the idea and then realizing, through the stories, that what that meant to me personally, and then it started to click, and then it was more or less I had no control over it. I didn't know when it was going to happen or when it wasn't, and the more I let go and quit worrying about it is when everything sort of kicked in for me.
Yep.
But then being able to teach that for other people, there's been others that have had questions. I basically, you have to somewhat vaguely explain it without talking about it. That's the weirdest thing. And then letting people know that there's nothing outside that's going to happen. Everything is going to be created from inside.
Right, because everyone is what is it? They're so programmed for it's the Pavlok. You do something, you get rewarded. If you do it right, you're going to get that golden star.
Yeah.
If you go and volt and cast your volt at the North and South poles and put someone in charge over your mind, and in the electrical college, you're going to get a star, Johnny. You're going to get a star, Mary. You're going to get a star, Elizabeth. Go and get your star. I voted today. You're so programmed in that Pavlov mind control psychology that if I do this, then I'm going to get this. If I do this, I'm going to get that. Sure, we're told there are laws of reaping and sowing and karma. I get all of that. But when you get, and you just allow things to naturally flow, and you be like the elements, you be like the water, or you be like the wind over there when John, when Nicodemus comes to Jesus at nighttime, and, they're having this secret, hey, Jesus, what is this thing about being born again? How can a man go into another womb? What is this born again? And he says, the wind bloweth where it listeth, thou cannot cometh, or where it goeth, so is everyone that is born of the Spirit. And he says, if I would have told you of earthly things, you would know, because I tell you of heavenly, spiritual, metaphysical things, you're an ignoramus. He says, are you not a master of Israel? And he says, and you don't know these things in the Old Testament, the Old Covenant, that is talking about being born again, having nirvana, having born anew, having that spell taken off of you that I sent in Isaiah 66, a strong delusion, because you believe not the love of the truth, that it says in 2 Thessalonians that you might be damned, because you believe not the love of the truth when it was preached to you through your telepathic, through that conscience, through that light that's inside of you, John 1:9. And because you do not choose to, James 1:22, to be that double-minded man, you choose to not allow yourself to look at your conscience, and you do as you about face. Your double-minded man is unstable in all his ways, for he looketh in a glass. And he says, and he forgetteth what manner of man he is. That's you, Nicodemus. Because why? I was that Pharisee of Pharisees. I used the Smiths, the evil ones, whatever it is, or it was the universe itself. Because of how I'm programmed, I was a black and white. And you know that. I was black and white. And that's what this law says. And that's what that spell does. That's what the old covenant does. That's why they were so blind they couldn't even see, even though the word see is in Pharisee, you see. And even the Sadducees, they were sad. Because why? They had the law. They had a spell put on them. They literally were blinded. Like Paul, the magician, ex-magician, he put a spell, a blinding sleep spell on Elymas and overpowered the sorcerer in Acts 13 there. And when you just let this stuff go and you become the wind of the water's going down the rock, the water's going down the mountain, and it comes to a rock, does it say, oh no, it just goes and literally flows and goes around it, and it makes its own path, because it doesn't have, water doesn't have, the elements. You be as the element. You fight fire with fire. You fight water with water. You become quintessence. That's when all four are aligned. The four elements we're told, but the quintessence is the fifth element, electrical mind. It's yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So, well, I'm glad that this was, and not that our discussions were without not, in time past, but to be able to understand. I'm looking back at some of the comments that are Miss High, hi Miss High. But it says, if you write this down, I might understand. And it says, be back. And of course, there's a smiley face. But the thing is like, you don't want to understand. Because even that right there, we've been programmed to say, do you understand me? I tell people, no, I don't understand you. I said, I'm not going to stand under you. I overstand what you're saying. And then that really trips their mind. Overstand. No. Do you understand what I'm saying? No, I understand. And then that even... No, I'm going to stand in. I'm electromagnetic pulses, but I'm not going to, but I know what you're saying, Missy. I know what you're saying. If you write it down, that's how you learn. And well, so
I tell people I already know. I tell them,
yes.
Before, yeah, I know what this is about. I know I've already had the conversation, and that's why, I think that's why you connect with people on a different level sometimes, because of your telecommunication, right? The people closest to you are usually people where you can just make eye contact and have an entire conversation.
Yeah, you can have an entire communication in a matter of now. Yesterday I was somewhere, and let's just say there was a lot of energy flowing. I'll say that there, and they had to leave the room, and it was just like, but because when you start to understand and overstand that souls recognize each other by frequency, vibration, and sound waves, and it's not physical, and your light is shining, and or your light is shining that someone comes and attacks you, like I think you said recently, you were in an environment where there was someone resonating on a low frequency, and your light was so strong that you magnetically attracted someone that had nefarious low frequency entities in them. They magnetically came like a net, but that's the whole thing, and that's where I had to learn that my light. I've always loved flashlights and candles, and I was sitting in my car like 3 months ago. My brother was here, and he's like, Eric, he's like, man, he's like, what do you? He's like, you got 3 flashlights in the car. I'm just like, and it literally a light bulb came on. I was like, I said, I've always loved candles. I've always loved lights. I've played with fire in the candles when I was a kid. And I was like, my brother was like, I remember that. And it was like, because that's always been that light inside of me, but it was suppressed. Even though I sang all those songs, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine till Jesus comes. I'm going to let it shine. But yet I would suppress it going outside of the church, outside of the building, And so it's just, and that's why people attack you. That's why when us old souls are attacked, it's not that people are upset. It's literally there's lunatics, there's malwares and viruses, parasites that are hosts for low frequencies that are just using them as a tool. They're just using them as a tool to try to get to you. Like even Paul had. He said he had a messenger of Satan that buffeted him, that used narcissism. Well, they're in 2 Corinthians 12 because of his revelation. When Paul astral projected over there in 2 Corinthians 12, he astral projected, and he said he went up to heaven and he seen things that are unspeakable. He went up into his mind. He went up into his mind where it says, Paul even wrote, he says, eye hath not seen, nor ear hath heard, nor hath it entered in the mind of those that which is prepared for them, which love them. He went up into his mind, also known as the third heaven. His pineal gland was activated, showing him what is capable inside of this body. And when he came back down, and I believe it's when he got stoned, he didn't get high. He literally got stoned in the narrative outside of Lystra, underneath rocks, just like Stephen got stoned underneath rocks. But in 2 Corinthians 12, he says, and this is how the universe, God says, I create evil, I create good, I create light, I create darkness. He said, Paul, he said, my grace is sufficient for thee, your weakness, I become strong. Because he says, because I was buffeted by a narc, a messenger of Satan, because of your revelations. So the old adage goes when the church, it says, what God won't give you more than you can handle, and that is true. That definitely is true, and so that's what our light is. And so, but on that note, I gotta get to this house that's working construction, and if I don't get there, they're gonna turn the lights out. They're not gonna be like Motel 6. We'll leave the light on for you.
All right. Well, you get after it, and we'll get back to this. Everybody, follow Definition, and then follow me, and we'll do more of these later. So thanks for sticking around. It was a good time.
Yeah.